Good evening. I'm going to call us to order. We are here in the middle school. We are here on Wednesday, March 11th. The time is now 6:16. We are here for the subcommittee meeting of the Curriculum, Instruction, and Student Life, otherwise known as CISL. Do we have any remote participants? I don't think we do. Okay, so I'm not going to read my script. I am going to do a roll call for those that are here in person. Catherine Frost? Here. Madeline Lennox? Here. Also present, we have somewhere in the building, I think is Dr. Cushing. Mr. Brennan?
Present.
Oh, I wrote your name twice. Emma Puglisi is here as well. Hi, thank you. Ms. Brown? Here. Did I do everybody? And then Casey Fiore?
Here.
Michael Cassidy?
Here.
Nora McQuarrie?
Here.
Lorigan Sudak?
Here.
This is a long list. This is great. Sadie Brennan? Here. Isaac Bosse? Isaac, did I say your last name right? I think I asked you last time. What is it? Bosse. Okay, thank you. Delphine Qua?
Here.
Victoria De La Cruz?
Here.
Tyler Kochek?
Here.
Kochek or Kochek?
Gotcha.
Kochek, I'm sorry. Thank you. And Henry Weller? Great. Can I ask, Sadie, would you mind doing the Pledge of Allegiance for us? Thanks. I pledge allegiance to the flag from the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So our first order of business is to approve the minutes from February 4th. I will take, the chair will make a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Catherine Frost. Do we have any thoughts, edits, or considerations? Okay, I'm going to say all in favor. That passes. How many do we have here? 18-0. Okay, our next order of business is the student life updates from student representatives. Does anybody want to go first? Is it okay if we start with the middle school? Thanks, guys.
Hi, my name is Tyler Kochik, and today I would like to tell you about what's going on in the school right now. Today in math, we had a test on systems of equations with substitution and elimination. In science this week, we have had a couple of labs. On Friday and Monday, we had bath bombs that were made out of different oils and salts and some baking soda. We also started a lab about the phases of the moon on Monday. Yesterday we wrote a CER, and we started painting a picture about the sun, the earth, and the moon all like orbiting each other. And today we finished that painting, and there was also a few other things that are going on in the school, where for starters in band we have the all-city concert coming up on the 24th, and lastly we have track starting in April. Thanks for having me.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and it's finally spring, and I'm so happy that it is. I'm Victoria, and here's what's been going on in 8th grade. To start off, today during Global App 1, which is usually strings for me, we had an amazing performance and workshop from the trio Fadolin, a violinist, a cellist, and a fadolinist. A fadolin is essentially a violin with extra strings to give it more range and like flavor. So yeah, the 8th grade strings played one of their pieces for the upcoming concert, Orchid, and we practiced staying together, fixing up dynamics, and knowing when you have the melody. On a more serious note, the 8th grade and 7th grade have just started their new discipline reset. Since then, I've been noticing a lot of detentions on Capit, even with people I know. But I know that rules are put in place for the benefit of everyone, so I support this decision. Anyways, to add to that, in ELA class, we just finished our Outsiders unit, and now we're learning about poetry, learning about rhyme and rhythm and the Harlem Renaissance, and the art that was created during that period of time, which also connects to our civil rights unit in civics class. Yeah. I personally like this unit since it changes things up a bit, but I can tell some of my classmates are a bit skeptical. Overall, the atmosphere of the school is pleasant, and I'd say things have been going well. Thank you for listening, and have a good night.
Hi, thank you so much for having me this evening. I'm talking about 8th grade Cabot. We are learning about some interesting topics in school, specifically in civics. We started learning about civil rights and the Civil War, especially about Abraham Lincoln, slavery, and all that kind of stuff. And I find that very interesting. I've always loved history, and I love geography and all that stuff. Across all language and music competition has just started. In French, it's called the Manie Musicale. It's where about 16 artists have a song or have a song chosen, and they compete like a March Madness style to see who wins, single elimination. And everybody is getting so pumped up and hyped for the student versus teacher game. It was unfortunately had to be moved from late March to now early April, but I'm very excited, and I hope that the 8th grade will win, and I don't think Mr. Bren's in favor of that, so thank you so much.
Hi everyone, I'm Delphine, and today I'm just going to be giving you a little snapshot of what life is like in the 9th grade for me. So recently our student body has started selling semi-formal tickets for this year's freshmen and sophomores. I think this year we're going to be going with a floral theme, so that's very exciting, and everybody this week is looking to buy their tickets. What else? We right now in English and history, we've started working on our research papers, our end of year research papers, and I haven't really started my history one yet, but I did work on my English one recently. Right now we're trying to find current events and connect them with themes that we've found in our books that we've read this year. So for example, I'm doing my English research project on AI, both the pros and cons of it. Mainly the cons, because I'm trying to connect it with the theme of the pitfalls of temptation, which is also visible in the Odyssey with Odysseus and him being tempted to boost his ego throughout the story, even though it ends up with him losing all his men. We have an upcoming music trip to Hershey Park, which I'm really looking forward to later this spring. And recently, the high school jazz band won silver at our competition, so that was very exciting. And I'm also looking forward to starting my spring sports season. This year I'm going to be trying out as a defender on the lacrosse team, and I'm super excited about that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Isaac, and I'm the Vice President and Junior Representative for Class of 2027. We have a little update on the prom tickets. We started selling them, and we have a total of 161 prom tickets as of today, and it's only been the third day of sales. Once again, the prom's going to be on May 8th at 6 o'clock, Black Swan Country Club in Georgetown. The tickets are going to be continued. The tickets will be continued. The tickets are going to be sold. My bad. Continue to be sold on the first and third lunch blocks both days. In other news, the SATs are on March 26th, and the deadline to sign up for those is Friday the 13th. The BHS Band All City concert is on the March 24th. The high school band has been practicing for like 2 months, and it's one of the only concerts where the middle school and the high school perform together. And then lastly, the AP Studio Art class, the next piece being created will be featured at the PBSX Museum. So.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sadie, and I'm a senior at Beverly High School. So I think the big overarching thing that we can talk about is, like, from a senior perspective that's happening right now at the high school is the REACH internships. You can feel that excitement, like, buzzing in the hallways about everyone leaving and going on their internships in about a month from now. I know I'm personally going to work with our city clerk at City Hall, which is super exciting. Spring sports, as Delphine said, are starting just around the corner. The boys basketball team made it into the Elite Eight this year in their tournament, which is a huge accomplishment on their end, and we're very happy for them. Spring musical tickets have just went on sale, so be sure to buy those. Great show. And senior tickets for prom have also started going on sale as of Tuesday, and we've gotten a couple of sales so far, so it should be a good prom. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think next up, we have a presentation from Ms. Erin Brown on multi-tiered system of supports. We previously addressed, we had a presentation a little while back on a subject that is adjacent and overlapping, and it was an important subject that we thought warranted maybe a bigger, broader discussion with a little bit more time to do that. So thank you for Ms. Brown for bringing a presentation back to us.
Absolutely. I want to let the students know that they are free to go. I mean, I'll probably go on for a little bit, but you're welcome to stay, but you're also free to go. And thank you for coming, as always.
Yeah, thank you for
guys
your
do a great
updates.
job.
Great job.
I figured I'd come up here. It's a little easier to see the TV at this length and be able to see all of you also while I present some information tonight. Like Ms. Ducharme said, last time we had some speakers from the special education department talking about specially designed instruction and what that looks like. And they gave a little, kind of touched on a little bit of the MTSS process and BSST, or student support teams, at that time. And I think from there, both Ms. Ducharme and I talked about there being some confusion about it and so forth. So we talked about coming back and talking about the multiple supports that we have available to students in Beverly and what that system looks like. So as I walk through this tonight, just kind of thinking about, you know, the process of, we'll look at what the tiers of instruction are in MTSS, which is multiple tiered supports. And we'll initially talk about the what. We'll talk about the evolution of BSST over time. And then we'll look at how it looks in our district right now. With that being said, some places are stronger than others, some pieces are stronger than others, and we'll look at then the professional development that has occurred over the years, because MTSS is a process that's been in place since before COVID, and it's a framework, I should say, that's kind of nationwide, a framework that kind of is overarching and looks at just all the pieces that are there to support students in the educational system in general. So we're going to start here on the first slide. It just talks a little bit about what is the definition for it. And DESE defines MTSS as a proactive, data-driven, and preventative framework. And I think the piece of this that's really important to remember is that it's proactive. I'll talk about the evolution in a little bit, but prior to MTS was RTI, which was response to intervention. And response to intervention was reactive, kind of looking at after there's difficulties, what are we doing? So this is a proactive framework looking at different tiers of instruction. Again, it's a framework, it's not a prescription. And so in the different literature you find on tiered support systems, it's just that, it's a framework. It's not prescriptive of exactly what has to happen at every level. And I think that's the part that gets very confusing for people, both family members and community members as well as teachers. I think it can be a confusing process for people because we like to have things like neat and tied up in a bow, especially educators. We like that. And this isn't always as neat as that as we might want it to be. So if we look at the tiers, tier 1 is universal. And again, 80 to 90% of our population will reach the grade level expectations with the tier 1 support. So that is universal for all students. And so kind of looking at, we'll delve into what that looks like a little bit more as we go through the process. Tier 2, you're looking at, generally speaking, guidelines of 5 to 15% of the student population might need a little more targeted support. So again, in a class of, 25 students, you're talking, anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4 students that might need that tier level of support after the tier 1 instruction. And then finally, tier 3 support is more intensive, and that's generally speaking, again, these are general terms, 1 to 5%. So a much smaller number of students, and I will explain more as we get a little bit further in the process. I think it's important to look at the evolution of student support teams in particular. So we have this framework of tiers where there's support, there's really robust tier 1 instruction, there's tier 2 and tier 3 instruction. Somewhat adjacent to that and embedded in now what is MTSS is this concept of student support teams. So back in the 80s and 90s, for those of us who are around teaching and learning in that time, and even into the 2000s, let's be honest, there was a lot of teaching to the middle. That's what was happening in classes. It wasn't really looking at the students in front of us. There wasn't the level of data-driven instruction that goes on nowadays and what we've kind of worked up to in our tier 1 instruction. So this BSST team was an opportunity for teachers that were struggling with students. Some of their students, they were kind of teaching generally to the middle, and some of their students were struggling. You could go to a BSST, or I call it BSST for Beverly, but it's a student support team. You could go to that group and bring your concerns about the student learning. They would give you strategies to then go back and employ in your classroom and keep the data on it. You want to keep both the strategies and the plan that you're using as well as the data to see generally, is the student making progress over time? Are we making enough progress towards that grade level expectation? And so that's where that started. And then from there, over time, we have built the capacity of our teachers. We have done a lot of work over the years. I have been here 21 years, so the span of what that looks like on examining data. What does our data tell us? What are our formative assessments tell us? What are all the things that are going on in our classroom based on our instruction telling us about our student learning? And so we've done a lot more work on that over the years. And so it has kind of evolved, and you can see in that last piece there that within MTSS, the essential problem-solving function of BSSTs still exists, but it's now seamlessly embedded in a lot of the things we already do. I'm not saying that it doesn't or shouldn't exist on its own as well. And in some areas we're doing that very well, in some places we're not. So that piece of it, but there has been a real melding over time of that whole process because we've built capacity amongst our staff to be able to understand data, understand instructional strategies, high leverage strategies, how to then attack the issues that may come up with student learning in their classrooms. When you look at this model here, all 3 tiers can be delivered by the classroom teacher. And so when you look at that, that's certainly one model of it. There can be places and people that also might assist in that, but it's not a set prescription by DESE and or any other organization. It's just a framework, and that the essential piece of it is if your tier 1 instruction, that green piece that everybody gets, is really, really strong instruction, we're trying to do preventative work to keep students out of tier 2 and tier 3 and having those gaps. And certainly the earlier we do this and the more effective we are in the younger grades, it prevents gaps from the older grades. So that's a little bit about that. And that just kind of sets the scene for, I'll talk about later, just kind of looking at that whole piece of where we stand in terms of SST teams. Excuse me, I'll keep going back and forth. So hopefully you can kind of see the picture of that framework and what that looks like. So now we'll go on to the what. Later we'll get to the how and what that might look like in our buildings and our schools, but this is the what. So this is the tier 1 instruction for all students, and it requires high quality, universally designed instruction. Again, it's inclusive, it's universally designed grade level instruction. So we're looking at 5 components within there, specifically high quality curriculum. And so when you look, we were fortunate, post-pandemic, we were all like, it's a new world. Things had changed, a lot of things were going on, especially those initial years after the pandemic. We all came back and thought we'd get right back to accelerated learning that we had been doing prior to, and it took years to kind of get there. But one of the things that it brought about was some ESSER funds that enabled us as a district to buy high quality curriculum, and high quality curriculum is not inexpensive, and it's often difficult. At the time, I will say, I'm going to go back 20 years, the 15 to 20 year mark that I have been here. So again, the early 2000s, the curriculum we had, we didn't have a curriculum review cycle. Our budget was kind of very lean at the time. It was just the way the economy was at the time. And so there wasn't this high quality curriculum in all areas, in all the core areas. So we've been able to bring that in, and I'll talk a little bit about that moving forward when we look at what it looks like at each level. So we have a lot of high quality curriculum. We continue to need more, and certainly in the budget process, I talked to our leader about that and what that looks like. Specifically, I'm going to say like middle school science is an area we need to put some more resources towards. Next is effective practice. So this gives you some examples in terms of explicit instruction, modeling, guided practice, and so forth. But the practices within the classroom, and 2 and 3 are kind of coupled together, because 3 is the differentiation and the access. So thinking about how is the learning being designed in that class, in your classroom as a teacher, so that students can access it. So for example, we did a lot of work on universal design for learning, and that's access for students. So this is just a quick look at the framework for that. Cannot see this very well, I apologize. But it looks at different areas to think about when you're designing your instruction, how students engage with the material, how it's represented, and then their action or expression with the material and information. So I think this is just one piece we've done over the years. Again, over the years have done a fair amount of work with UDL and what does that mean for students so they can access the learning. If you look at like scaffolding, how are students able to access that general ed curriculum? Some of them may need scaffolds and some may need it heavier at the beginning and then wean them off the scaffolds, but how can they access the general ed curriculum? You're not changing the curriculum, you're providing access to it. And what are the effective practices? So if you look at John Hattie's research, which is a meta-analysis of many studies, thousands of studies on effective instructional practices, what are the ones we're looking at? How are we employing those? What does that look like? And sharing that through professional development with the staff. Next is really important is assessment and data use. Again, I spoke at the beginning, we've become much more adept at using our data and looking for what is the data that we need. So I'll give you just little examples from entrance or exit tickets, do nows to, formative assessments that are going on, maybe in the form of a quiz or whatever. But looking, or even an assignment you give out that day in the class. So looking at the results of that and what is that telling you about student learning? And are the students learning it? So again, if you're falling into that kind of place where maybe more than 15% of your students, 20% of your students are struggling, you're going to want to really kind of go back and reflect on your instruction and maybe look at where there might have been an area that it wasn't quite hitting the mark because a majority or a larger than usual amount of students weren't being successful with that. And how am I going to then alter my instruction so that they are successful? So really utilizing the data, everything I used to say as a principal, everything the students do is data to inform, your practice, whether it's back in the elementary school, it's March and they're having difficulty walking in lines. I always ask, what does your implementation of responsive classroom look like? We're all tired in March, so what does that look like? And so maybe if you tighten up on some of those expectations and the practices within responsive classroom, then the students will do better. And that is just another piece of data that informs what we're doing as a school environment and educators in that tier 1 opportunity. And so finally, positive belonging environment, clear routines, inclusive culture, and integrated social emotional learning. These are vital that, if a classroom is struggling because the routines are not clear, or the environment is not inclusive, students are not going to perform at their best. So these components are really, really important. We've spent a lot of time over the years doing a wide variety of professional development and offering different opportunities, which I'll get to later. But we really focus a lot. We haven't always branded them as tier 1 instruction, but all of them are tier 1 instruction to enhance the toolbox of every teacher in all of these areas. So that's tier 1 at a glance. Then you dive down to tier 2, and tier 2 delivers targeted skill-specific intervention. Again, it's to small groups. It's provided in addition to the core instruction, not instead of it, and addresses specific skill gaps for those students that aren't meeting the grade level expectation yet. So this, generally speaking, is going to be more on a unit by unit basis. If you're thinking in the older grades of, you're teaching a unit to students and you have some students that are struggling with it, you are potentially going to take them in a small group and work with those students on the area that they're struggling. You as the educator teaching them with all the formative assessment data that you have and you know what they're doing in the classroom really can understand where they might be having the difficulty and address that. They're not usually pervasive and long-term. Tier 2, the tiers are made so that students can flow between them. It's not a place, it's not a designation, it's not a label, it's a framework for students to move between based on their ability to learn the specific skill at that time. So I'll talk in a little bit about how this might look in a classroom. Again, we said that certainly these interventions can happen in the general ed classroom, but there's also other opportunities for them to happen. One thing I think that gets lost for people in tier 2 and 3, for teachers sometimes, I'm going to try and make this bigger. There we go. Some of the things that get lost are people often think that tier 2 and tier 3 are a program, a set program. That's where the individuality of what's going on for a student not every student is going to fit a certain program, and there are only so many programs out there to fit certain needs. There are some, certainly, that we use to meet needs, especially in Tier 3. But in Tier 2 and Tier 3, this kind of outlines what are the instructional principles that go along with intervention. So explicit instruction, systematic instruction, precise, simple, and replicable language, repeated opportunities to practice, build fluency, and review, including double dose of instruction, frequent opportunities to respond and interact, and specific error correction and feedback when necessary. So this is kind of an outline of just kind of those intervention strategies that can be employed at Tier 2 and Tier 3. Tier 2 are going to be a little more, the students aren't at the grade level expectation yet for that skill, and so you're going to work on that skill. Tier 3, when we talk about Tier 3, which will be next, demands more intensive kind of diagnostic-based support. So it's individualized and intensive. It doesn't mean that students are seen individually, but you're really looking at the individual kind of pervasive issue that's going on with that student. So I'll talk about an example when we get a little bit further in the presentation, but it's individualized, driven by comprehensive data, not just one score. It is increased in intensity, so smaller group sizes. Obviously, that's usually going to happen because you have fewer students in that tier, with increased frequency and giving immediate corrective feedback. Explicit instruction, which is really strong, clear learning targets and predictable outcomes, strategies and programs matched to the deficit area. So there are programs. So, you know, if there are some issues in phonemic awareness and so forth, you might employ an ERI program, but you don't have to. You can certainly address it in other ways, but that's one program we might have that we might address it with. Progress monitoring, clear measurable goals used to adjust instruction quickly. We do a lot of this at the elementary level. Certainly in literacy, we're doing a lot of progress monitoring on students throughout the year. Anyone who is at risk, we look at their scores regularly. And like I said, we have data team meetings 3 times a year in our schools, our data meetings with our staff. But outside of that, we also have structures in place, whether it's at the elementary level, grade level teams that meet regularly. And so at those meetings, I remember them as a principal, we would sit down and I comb through that data, constantly looking at students and how are the students doing, what are the issues that are going on, what instruction are they having, what does the intervention look like, how do we need to change that? And changing it, monitoring it, and coming back to it. Again, I'll get on further into the presentation about there are some challenges with all of these things. You know, we'd like it all to be perfectly neat and easy, and it's not, but we certainly try. And I know at the middle school and high school levels, they have time for grade level team times as well as content times built into the schedule. So the hope would be that we utilize that time, at least in part, to talk about student learning outside of just having a separate SST time, which we'll be working on. The key to this, if you look at number 6 too, is foundational skills. We're really looking at prioritizing foundational literacy, numeracy, and executive functioning, behavior, and social emotional skills. That's kind of the priority, especially when you're looking at Tier 3 interventions. So now, as I said, we're going to talk a little bit about potentially what does this look like in our schools and where are our challenges from that. So this is the elementary school. So if we were to look at Tier 1, we have high quality, engaging curriculum. We adopted Wit and Wisdom, Zern Math. We have a variety of assessments, but Dibbles is one of them. Linked assessments are other. And we also have the district accommodation plan, which that is a plan that every district has that talks about the different accommodations that are made for every student and any student. And I think that's important to talk about with families too, and kind of, you know, thinking about when we think about next steps, how do we share that information with families so that they know that's an opportunity for them to be able to have certain accommodations that are just part of our plan. At Tier 2, you're going to be looking at reading or math groups built on student need. Again, they can happen in class or in WIN blocks. When we prior to the pandemic, we had Pearson as our main product for literacy in our elementary schools. And from that point on, it was a small group. We had a small group instruction model going on in our literacy blocks at the elementary schools. With Wit and Wisdom and doing a program with Fidelity, that program is more whole group based. And so what came out of that was teachers and administrators really wanting and needing that time with their kids. So developing those WIN blocks, what I need, so that teachers could do those interventions with their kids. They were used to doing those interventions with their students, and they really wanted that opportunity to do that. So that certainly was built in the elementary schools. In Tier 3, it's, again, more tailored support, reading and math groups. Again, the general ed teacher can do this. In my next slide, after that slide, I'll talk a little bit what that might look like at any level. But there are also the ability at Tier 3 for specific reading support through reading teachers. Those are general ed supports. Again, we have some coaches and principals that are also at the elementary level right now that pull students and do this type of intervention with our students. We're fortunate we have many literacy coaches as principals at our elementary school, so it's a benefit that they also are able to sometimes take students in those situations. Again, it's a small amount of students, but that's an opportunity that we do have. So sometimes it's in class given by the general ed teacher, and sometimes there are people in places where that happens. So that's the academic portion of it. The social emotional portion of it is responsive classroom. That's our main curriculum that we work on. It's embedded skills from social emotional learning at morning meetings and opportunities to talk about things there, to interactive modeling, showing what is expected behavior, practicing what's expected behavior, and using positive language. Those are samples of what that instruction looks like for all students. When students might have some struggles with any of those areas, social, emotional, or behavioral skills, the Tier 2 would look like potential one-on-one check-ins with counselors and or principals and or other staff that make themselves available in schools to do that. It also might mean lunch bunches where students might work for a small period of time on a specific skill, and then, you know, with maybe a group of other students working with on the same skill. And so that is an opportunity. Tier 3, is a little more intense, as we said, that in that case, there might be behavior plans that are employed, and it might be based on, you know, kind of function of their behavior, things like that happening. Some executive functioning activities for students to assist them. Cartwheel is a mental health service as well as part of the wraparound supports. So that's kind of a general kind of look of how that might look at the elementary level. At the middle school level, again, a lot of these are similar. They might have different names, but in general, similar kind of programming. High quality curriculum and engaging instruction through Wit and Wisdom through 5 and 6. Reading Reconsidered in 7 and 8. Reveal Math is our program 7 through 12. 6 through 12. Zern they have for math in 5th grade. They have currently a partnership with TNTP, which is a group, a nonprofit group in the education sphere that comes in and assists them with looking at that Tier 1 instruction specifically. I know they're looking at planned purposeful discourse in their classrooms and what does that look like. I believe they were here today doing learning walks. They come in repeatedly throughout the year and kind of look and assess and talk about next steps in terms of that, as well as the DCAP. In reading and math, again, those can be in small groups, in class, or during Rise Time. Rise Time is something that is new for grades 7 and 8. Mr. Fiore, that's correct this year, that's new. RISE, I believe, stands for Reteach, Intervene, Social, Emotional, and Extension. And so kind of thinking about that, that's a new kind of structure. And I think we're just kind of getting our arms wrapped around what that could potentially become in terms of looking at kind of what win looks like at certain grades and what flex looks like at other grades. And we'll talk about flex at the high school and how we might be able to look at that and what are the challenges that have come up. And they have win at 5 and 6. It's a little easier to schedule the 5 and 6 because they're on mostly 2-person teams. So there's a little more flexibility in that scheduling than there is when you're talking 5-person teams at 7 and 8. And finally, Tier 3, tailored support again, reading math groups with adjustments. They have some reading specialists that do some Wilson intervention with students with that increased practice. So an example, kind of thinking about Tier 1 with a general education teacher, might be that, the 6th grade standard in math of multi-digit division is the Tier 1. Instruction occurs around that. You might have a few students in your class that are struggling with that concept a little bit. So you might need to kind of go to an underpinning skill, maybe a 5th grade skill where you're looking at partial products that they were taught in 5th grade. And it's a 4 by 2 digit division as opposed to multi-digit division. Backing up a little bit, you might need to do that. It might just be a reteach. But looking at that, Tier 2 is that kind of level of intervention that occurs, and you know that based on you working with your students in your classroom. And so you might do that. A Tier 3 might be someone who is really struggling with division in general and might need more support. You might back up to looking at single on single division, which is essentially the inverse of multiplication. And so thinking about what does that look like for that student, how could we maybe use different modeling to help them understand that. So are they at the level of repeated addition and arrays for multiplication, and trying to help them through that physical modeling of what that means for division and how those two are inverse operations, and they might need support in that, and then be able to understand that and move to that next level. So that's where you say Tier 3 interventions, they're not, you can certainly look at them, but that one in particular, if the issue was pervasive with a Tier 3 student and you tried some interventions and they were really struggling for that, you might, go to BSST and ask for more support. And at that point, you may refer for a special education evaluation. But there are a lot of students at Tier 3 that can move within the continuum based on what the instruction looks like for them. So that is, something to think about in terms of not all students in Tier 3 have a disability. And so the expectation is students with really good instruction are able to move within those tiers, and if they need something more, then we could look at that if it's pervasive. And then social, emotional, and behavioral on this end, there's advisory time. They use a responsive classroom in the lower grades. The house system came about post-COVID to kind of, one of the things that also was, I don't think I'll have time because it's too much, but there's a link to a report from the middle school kind of thinking about that whole feeling of belonging in the building at that point in time. So that was a process. House system is a way for students in a large environment to have smaller environments and cross teaming. So they're able to have different people within the building and at their levels and across grade levels. and different staff that they interact with. And it's, that was the whole impetus behind that program. Restorative practices is something I feel like more so at the at the middle school than at the elementary, that they use really well, is really looking at a philosophy behind how we look at interacting with each other in our learning environment. So not a punitive interaction, but a learning opportunity, and that we're all part of this together. So kind of thinking tier 1 on that would be when classrooms set their norms and expectations as a group at the beginning of the year, and constantly revisit that. And if that gets violated or broken in some way, how do we restore that in an appropriate manner outside of just discipline? Sometimes discipline obviously needs to happen, but how do we look at those practices and that philosophy a little differently? And purposeful rapport building, that is, building those relationships with students. In the tier 2, it's, students who may be struggling in that area. Again, one-on-one check-ins. There's a variety of people, counseling staff, as well as administrative staff that do that work in the building, and teachers. Teacher-student caregiver meetings that often occur at this level and at the high school level. Kind of life skills groups or kind of lunch bunch-esque groups that kind of work on those social skills and or executive functioning skills. And restorative practices. Some students might need a little more assistance in that area, or they might be a little more frequently crossing that boundary in the expectations. And finally, again, down the bottom for tier 3, executive functioning activities, functional based strategies based on behavior, wraparound supports for cartwheel. We also have a lot of adjustment counselors and counselors that do great work here, City Connects work, Beverly Connects, excuse me, and then restorative practices. And in particular in that one, the restorative practices in that case can be a person in Mr. De Leon. He provides a lot of supports to students that might really be struggling a little bit more with the expectations in this area of behavior and social emotional control. And so thinking about that, that's kind of looking at, are the students able to, what's the underlying cause of that behavior and so forth, and that's what is looked at and determined eventually. Is that potentially something that's a disability, or is it something that somebody just needs more education for and on? And so then we have MTSS at the high school, again, engaging curriculum and benchmarks in all courses, common assessments, and the DCAP. There in particular, we had a presentation a couple of meetings ago, and it was while you all were here, so it wasn't prior to this committee, this new committee, I think that Dr. Thomas, Jennifer Thomas, and oh my goodness, Paul. Thank you. It's late at night. Paul Casey came and talked about the curriculum at the high school. They talked about looking at that in Reveal Curriculum 712 for math, the literacy curriculum, the TCI history curriculum, and the new science curriculum through Savas that has been employed in various classrooms there. So that is the quality curriculum. We have the benchmarks, we have midterms and finals, we have different, and certainly the discussions. They also have grade level team time. They have time to look at that data as well and talk about that, look at their regular unit assessment data. Our curriculum coordinators, both at the middle school and high school, and then our coaches at the elementary are really vital in constantly bringing that information, talking about it. How did students do? What does this mean for instruction? How do we improve that? So they've been vital in terms of that, moving the district forward in our ability to have students achieve grade level standards. Tier 2, in-class interventions, just as the others, with small groups based on student need. Here they have 2 blocks. One is called the flex block. That is like rise and win at the other levels. Maybe we'll call it all the same thing. It might help us. But you can see the kind of evolution over time, different levels. We're working and employing things at kind of different times based on their kind of readiness to do that work. And so FlexBlock came in as a way, again, for teachers to be able to take students and work with them on the different needs that they have. And it also is a time that the high school students also, some of them may be a little more willing and able and wanting to go and get support than maybe elementary and middle school students during a time like that might be. So that has been successful. They're really working towards that and really working with teachers on that as being a time to do that work. The implementation of these is new, whether it's RISE is new this year, Flex was new last year-ish. I think it was last year. My memory fails me if it was the year before. Last year? Last year. So kind of thinking about, kind of working through the bugs of what works, what doesn't, and we're at that stage now, but working on that. They also this year have what's called a short block that rotates in their schedule. And that short block is different than Flex, but it is a time that certainly they can work with students on skills that they might need. It's probably easier to use on tier 2 than it is necessarily a tier 3 basis, but you could add it as an additional part of your tier 3 instruction and intervention. And then tier 3 again is reading and math groups. They do have specific MCAS tutors based on student need there too during that season. And then really looking at, time within their block. So that brings up, the question of how this gets done. And we have been a strong district in looking at how we pull students and what that instruction looks like in the classroom, whether it's a 70-minute block, 50-minute block, 80-minute block, whatever. How do we structure the instruction at the beginning of the portion of the class as well as, or vice versa, you can flip it, and also have small group intervention time. It's possible in all those scenarios. And again, when you're talking tier 3, your intensity is going to be more, but that does not mean every day. Again, it's not a prescription like that. Your tier 2 may be once or twice a week, and your tier 3 may be 2 or 3 times a week. And if we kind of look at in the future, how do we kind of get some of these structures functioning in a much better place than they might currently be because they're new, having that ability to use that time as well as class time to do that. And so then again, social emotional behavioral skills, the freshman academy, sophomore teaming are 2 things that have been employed for quite some time at the high school, especially freshman academy, for that adjustment to the high school. They have team meetings weekly and discuss their students and what's going on in their particular teams. And then they have an advisory program, which is similar time as Flex. Check-ins, again, that happens a lot at that level with counselors if needed in those areas, as well as with teachers and teacher-student caregiver meetings. And finally, in the tier 3, there's probably more regularly scheduled counseling meetings with individual students. We have an outreach attendance interventionist at that level because we're certainly looking at dropout retention at that stage. Wraparound support services and cartwheel. So that's a little bit about the MTSS and how it looks at the high school. So moving forward, equipping educators with professional development. This is just a sampling of some of the professional development that has happened in the last few years. The Power of Positive by Carrie Stack was a keynote last year, as well as Manifestation of Belonging by Dr. Darnisa Amante Jackson. Again, we're looking at how we're creating an environment that's very strong in Tier 1. Then we have in the curriculum instruction realm, Tier 1 instruction and high expectations. Those were building-based PD that was given a few years ago. There was a ELA curriculum unpacking and writing backward design, implementing math language routines. Those are different opportunities for teachers to learn Tier 1 and Tier 2 practices. Inclusive environments, we had enhancing math and science instruction through a multilingual lens. We had trauma-informed schools. We've had a lot of teachers take trauma-informed certificate programs and share that information through professional development to other staff members. We had creating a sense of belonging for all. And every year, I'll show you a sample of multiple teacher-led presentations. Foundations is a program we use in the elementary level, a refresher course, and that's an example, math, fact, fluency, etc. I'm going to skip over this just so we have enough time. This speaks a little bit more to more professional development that has occurred over the years. Lisa Deeker, co-teaching consults with students, that's all inclusive practice. Navigating white privilege and anti-racism, how to build an inclusive classroom, anti-racism training, examples of microaggressions, strategies for creating trauma-sensitive classrooms, rethinking school discipline, collaborative problem-solving approach with Dr. Stuart Ablon. People love that. Importance of calling parents as part of communication, PLCs, whoops, I don't know why that did that, sorry. Universal design for learning, norm in every classroom. This was building-based work on the top 5 district practices. High expectations for all, usage of learning walks. Learning is relevant, authentic, and connected to real-world problem solving. Then we did work on CISL and all the social emotional pieces of CISL. That tells you a little bit about that. We had Dr. Adolph Brown, who was amazing, and everyone loved that presentation on dealing with your backpacks before they deal with you in terms of your success and social emotional growth and belonging. UDL and trauma, it's enhancing math and science instruction through multilingual lens, I already said earlier. So I could go on and on. That's just a list that I was trying to pull together. I had on there also, if we kept scrolling, kind of one of the choice boards over years of doing various PD. With all of this being said, there are challenges. I think it's really challenging to look at being very clear about what the definition of MTSS is in terms of it being a framework and not a prescription, and what those levels are and how those look. And I think that's certainly work that we can do as a district, and we will do in the coming year on looking at that piece and making sure we're clear. I think in the past, we might not have been really clear and explicit that this is a Tier 1 strategy or a Tier 2 strategy and what that looks like. So really being more explicit with that language, especially for staff, so that they're understanding that, because that's where confusion comes in and people aren't sure. And they aren't sure how students move from level to level or get referred to special education, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think certainly there's work to be done around that and coming back to that. Certainly when we started that, before COVID and to now, a lot of new people in the district, a lot of changeover happens in any district. So doing a lot of work around that in the future. Looking at that SST, I call it the BSST, establishing clear timing and consistent structures for that. I think people often get concerned about how many weeks do I do an intervention? What does that look like? And so being very clear on that. Looking at that 4 to 6 week model of doing intervention at what the student's growth looks like during that time, and coming back and talking about that. Like I said earlier, depending on the person's toolkit, the teacher's toolkit, and their ability to meet the students that are in front of them, this structure needs to be in place. So we have some areas where we need to do more work with that, particularly at the middle school. It used to be something that happened before school, and this year has been addressing student need kind of as needed through team meetings or otherwise. So this structure is not currently working, but we are working towards getting a team going immediately in that area so that we are providing teachers and students with the supports they need. But understanding that, again, a lot of these were built into the MTSS process through the schools and the work that has happened. So it's not that students haven't got any interventions for the entire year. And then data collection tools. I think this is really a really key component of making MTSS work. We have Linkit, which is a great data warehouse. It warehouses all our benchmark data, our MCAS data. We can look at kids and groupings and questions, and we can pull all sorts of things with that. One, to do more work with the staff on making sure that they are able to utilize that at any point in time, that it's easy. But the data collection that I'm talking about in particular is looking at the interventions that are going on and the relative data to that. So if you're a teacher, let's say you're the teacher that does a tier 2 and a tier 3 yourself, you're confident, you do that. Where are we housing that information? Because that's vital to if in the future there needs to be a referral to special education. They need to have that information, otherwise they're going to send you back to do more interventions. And so, because they have legal requirements on what's expected and so forth. And I don't think our tool right now that we've had for many years is teacher friendly or user friendly. It's ERTI. And I think that is definitely an area at this time that we need to look at, because if we make that something that's not cumbersome for teachers to put that, the teachers are already doing so much. And if it's an easy place to put information, then we can put that information in and it's usable and easy and everybody can have the data at hand when need be, if a referral needs to be made, or looking at just student progress from year to year. So certainly looking at that with a team of people, I think is the way to go in the future for that, in the near future. And finally, middle school organization, specifically with RISE, I think it's come to our attention that the Flex, there's an app that they use at the high schools called My Flex, and it makes it easy for the students to request into a teacher and the teacher to request students that they want during that time. And so it makes it much easier for people coming and going and getting what they need. And we don't have that at the middle school. And certainly I think RISE, you can't be as effective as you want to be if you don't have that. So looking at a tool that certainly would be friendly for middle school staff and students. Again, we don't want it on something that could be on their iPads, because we don't want them having cell phones, and that technology is a whole other problem, but an issue. But kind of thinking about that and what that looks like. So I've taken a lot of time. I just wanted to kind of give a comprehensive look at where we are now. So I know we have about 13 minutes, and thankfully our policies are super easy. So if anyone has any questions or comments.
Ms. Frost.
Hi, I was just wondering, thank you for that super detailed presentation. Oh my gosh, I learned a lot. Thinking about our school policies, middle school, high school, because the elementary school, the schedule is just so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
Like middle school, high school, like we have to be honest.
It's a challenge.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Like Ulysses, his Odyssey. I think one of my questions as a parent and as somebody who wants to support this really important endeavor, when we look at our school grading policies, when we look at, our scheduling, do we ever stop and think about, is this, if working with students, I could get in trouble for this, but just forget special education for a minute, but just teaching the kids the curriculum, just helping them, just getting them to be successful. Is what we do on a day-to-day basis helping us with this framework? And are we having that discussion ever? So I'm thinking about summative assessments, formative assessments, I know there's no redos on a summative, but what if you get 30% of your students failing the summative? Are we allowed to, do the teachers have the opportunity to say, pause, redo? Are we having those uncomfortable conversations that will really, I don't know, hope will push student learning forward? I know that that's a big question, but like, are we comfortable enough just saying like, oh, maybe we should look at this, maybe we should look at that, maybe we should look at our schedule, because
Yeah.
it might, what's in the best interest for our students?
Yeah, I think those, so specific conversations, like thinking secondary in particular, we did a lot of work previously on standard-based grading, what that looks like, for the idea of formative assessments and summative assessments, and certainly where we are today is a result of those interactions with teachers to say what's working and what isn't working, and how do we think we need to change this and fix this. And so there are those discussions. I think that's an ongoing discussion with our curriculum directors in terms of what does that look like. In terms of scheduling, I'll tell you, I've been recently to I'm a part of an assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction group, and this has been the topic for the entire year. And the barriers that are there in terms of scheduling, especially at the secondary level, are not unique to us, and everybody's sharing kind of what they're doing. What we're currently doing is generally on the more proactive end of this. Other people are behind us in terms of what that looks like with flex blocks, rise blocks, et cetera. But that is kind of where a lot of people are going. I also went to the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents Midwinter Conference, and they had a whole separate session on the challenges of doing it at the secondary level and having different groups, schools talk about that. And schedule often comes up as certainly a challenge at the secondary level for that.
And then I do have one other question. Just thinking about, tier one instruction, and one of the things that you mentioned was a positive environment. And then if we look at, the tiered instruction of like restorative practices, do we feel is there like a curriculum that we're using, like an evidence-based curriculum for restorative? I don't know the answer. Do we have an evidence-based restorative practices curriculum, set of guidelines or whatever, so that tier one is able to be delivered in a positive environment, knowing that it's more than just student behavior, but that is a component. And,
Yeah.
I could, if you don't know the name of it off the top of your head, that's cool. But it's just something that I was
Dr.
wondering.
Morgan's done a lot of work on that. That is his expertise in
Go
field
ask
of
him.
study.
Yep.
In terms of that, and he's also done a lot of training with that, and also modeling at the different levels. Often he'll, in the past has gotten a call to kind of model that with some teachers at the different levels, and that's something that he's done. We've offered trainings on that and what that looks like as well.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
I have a question. Any other questions? I'm trying to be thoughtful about the time. You actually, in the final slide, addressed most of my questions. So it sounds like, I just want to make sure I understand that I heard this correctly. At the high school, you're looking at the time that is available, how it's being used, how effective it's being used, and whether or not there's something we can do better in the high school area. So it is a challenge at the high school area, but we do have some. You're just looking at whether or not that's working the way it's designed to work.
Yeah,
Did
kind
I
of
hear
looking
that?
at what that looks like now, and what that looks like also. 7-8 is so closely aligned in terms of that secondary model of teaming and more classes than at the elementary level.
And it's budget season. So I heard you talking about ERTI and the importance of having a place to put the data that the teachers are working really hard to collect through that tier one and tier two and tier three place, especially as it sort of relates to when they might feel like we're looking at a special education referral. What we don't want is for then special educators to then say, you don't have enough information, you have to go back. That's not what we want. So are you looking at, as a district, alternatives to ERTI?
Yes.
And then, of course, the professional development component of that?
So I think we're in the initial stages of just kind of saying that's in looking at this process, something that we need. So certainly we would want teachers to be involved in that process, but since we're in the budget process too, kind of looking at that as a priority so that we can utilize this time, that, that rise time and that flex time, and make sure we're utilizing it appropriately across all levels and be able to get that information.
And then sort of back to my question about what was happening at the high school, it sounds like we have some time at the middle school that is at the middle school, when and rise is new. So ideally that might be available for some of that tier 2, tier 3 instruction.
Yes.
But you're looking at whether or not that is able to happen the way that it's being designed, and whether or not you can use some of what might be working at the high school level at the middle school level to see if that will help.
Yes.
And I also heard you are working on finding some collaborative time. You mentioned some before school time that used to work. I know, again, like at the high school, the middle school, I understand the challenge is the schedule. But I heard you say you're looking at finding some collaboration time for that SST, because
Yes.
there's something so important about the ability to collaborate with peers. Because we can't expect, obviously, I know this isn't what you're saying, but we can't expect our educators to know everything. There is a need always to need to be able to collaborate with peers, especially as it relates to kids that are struggling.
Yep.
Is it a diagnosis issue that we might be working with? Is it an instructional issue? What might have worked for somebody else? So you're looking at finding some time at the middle school.
Yes, and that's an immediate, there should be a posting going up about that. Their schedule is so difficult to work within the schedule that we're looking
Yeah.
outside of that
That was going to be
schedule.
my follow-up question,
Yeah.
was like, what is the timeframe
Hopefully
for
by
that?
Friday, but I just
Wow.
have to,
Okay.
if I can
It was a
get
little
it
bit
up
better
by
than I thought that
Friday,
answer was going to
maybe
be, actually, so
Monday.
that's awesome. Okay, great. Yep, go ahead.
I don't want to keep everybody because there's people coming in. I had two questions. One, the time for the data input, obviously, in a lot of education fields, we feel it too, is really hard. Is that rise or win or flag? All
Those,
those,
yeah.
all those. Are those specific for instruction, or could you use that time for data input as well?
Most of the time, it's going to be used for instruction.
Okay.
Yeah.
My other question is, when you had the slides up for academic versus SEL and you put a lot of one-to-one with, I'm assuming, the school adjustment counselors, how are those kids referred and defined to get that one-on-one support with the school? Are they referred out by the classroom teachers, or what is that? Is it the diagnosis based? How is that process?
Yeah, so it really depends. So at the secondary level, especially at the high school level, students kind of self-select to seek, and it's not only adjustment counselors they may want to see, guidance counselors, et cetera, different staff throughout the building that kind of do that work with them, that kind of self-select into that. I know at the middle school also, there's the ability to use a code. Thank you. QR, it's getting late.
Collaboration.
To be able to also ask for those services as well. But there's also those team meetings where you're just like, okay, these students are needing a little extra support. They may need a lunch bunch or whatever. Yep.
So I know we have two policies that we need to look at for first review. So really all we need to say is, does anybody have any questions on them? And then they're going to come back for second review and then vote to move to the bigger committee at our next CISL meeting. But before I move to that and then make a motion to adjourn, I know we're bumping up on time, and I recognize that we have parents coming in for what I'm really excited about. It's going to be some student recognition, but this is also a really important topic. So if anybody does have any questions, you can still ask any questions. I just
Or
wanna
we
make
can
sure.
bump to next time. too.
We also, yeah.
We can bump
Yep.
to next time.
We can
That's
bump to
fine.
next time.
Can I actually
Yeah.
just share a reflection on the excuse
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
MTSS? Scheduling came up multiple times in the conversation, and I really appreciate that people are being thoughtful about it, because it is such a impactful part of all of this. And it's something that we were thinking, it's very encouraging, by the way, to hear. Thank you very much sharing that we are working on at the middle school, creating a team that has time outside of the daily schedule. When I talk to teachers at every school in the district, there's always a reflection on what I'm sure is just a natural human problem of there's never enough time in the day. never enough hands to be able to work with, never enough ability to collaborate, never enough time in the day to get everything done. Obviously, this is a problem that everybody has, right? And I just want to sort of like highlight and underline the way that scheduling and staffing impacts everything that we do. Thank you, by the way, for this presentation is so like, it paints a very holistic picture of the things that we do in a way that I think is super useful for understanding. And I know it's a ton of information to take in at once. I'm killing time here. But I think like just keeping in mind that all of that stuff at once is also the stuff that the educators are kind of keeping in mind all day long while you're doing everything all at once. So the schedule not providing time specific, like discreetly for this kind of thing does make it so that we are kind of on the fly having to make decisions about this stuff every single day in a way that is leads to personal disorganization, right? And cuts out our ability to be able to collaborate and plan and make this a process that we can keep on kind of like tracking as we go along and really kind of revisiting what we've done and seeing how successful it was, right? So I'm super excited to hear that this is kind of a thing that like, I don't know if it could be like sort of when we do half day Wednesdays or something like that, make a regular part of what we do, but the more ability that we have to build into the schedule that we have or create new space in a schedule to make this a thing that is consistent, like you're saying, right? The better we are able at actually providing services and making sure that we are collecting the data that shows what kind of progress our students are making.
Yeah, I think that's all really relevant to the budget conversation, which we know is already really difficult.
Yep.
I hear you, and I validate that because I've also heard that. I do know that Dr. Cushing is coming forward at some point. We are having a joint city council and school committee meeting on the 18th, which if people are available to come to would be great. You also can watch it because BevCam will be streaming and then it'll be recordable. I know that he's bringing forward what building leaders have for asks as well. So what he's doing this year, and Dr. Cushing, I don't mean to speak for you, but what he's doing a little bit different this year versus what happened previously is we're providing a budget that looks at our needs in a couple different ways. And so I would hope and expect that what you're talking about there might be part of that, right? But that's a fair statement. Okay, so I'm just gonna try to wrap us up really quickly. Again, this is first review, so the time for sort of review and comment on these two policies will be at our next CISL meeting. So I'm just gonna ask you to kind of do your homework, take a look at those, and then I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? That passes, excellent. The time is 7:32.
Fantastic. Hello, everybody. I love to see so many people here with us. This is the Beverly School Committee meeting, and today is Wednesday, March 11th, 2026. And one of the very first things we're going to do is call this meeting to order. It is 7:37, and we're going to do a Pledge of Allegiance. So let's see. I called on you last week. Ward 2. We're going numerically. Ward 2, it's your turn. Here we go. To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Maddie. My body, as you can see, we have a fantastic slate of students and student athletes to recognize this evening. I would like to make a motion that we take things out of order and let our student rep go first before we take the time to honor all these student athletes so that she can give her report and then let her go on home to homework land. Or maybe college applications.
I would like to second that motion or make that motion.
Okay.
Okay,
First
John
by John
first.
Taylor, second by Miss Lindsay. All those in favor? All right, we're going off script. Go ahead there, my friend.
Thank you. Winter sports teams have ended their seasons. Many teams held end-of-season banquets to celebrate the successes of their team, graduating seniors and coaches. Spring sports tryouts start on Monday. All tryouts are posted on the athletics website as well as outside the athletic office so students know how to get involved. Spring sports at BHS include baseball, softball, lacrosse, sailing, and tennis. The Stage Right Drama Club attended Drama Fest with their incredible production of Dracula last weekend. The spring musical of Freaky Friday will take place on April 10th, April 11th, and April 12th. Tickets are on sale now. Seniors are finalizing their REACH internship plans, while underclassmen are finalizing their course selection for next year. And on March 24th and 25th, sophomores will be taking MCATs. Freshmen, juniors, and seniors will have a 2-hour delayed start on these days. Thank you.
All right, anybody questions? Any questions? As always, we thank you for your service, and you are now free to not stay here and be tortured by the rest of our meeting if you'd like to leave. Dr. Cushing, I forgot to ask if anybody's on the Zoom. Fantastic, okay. All right, so our next order of business is our recognition of students, employees, and community members. And I believe, Mr. Thomas, you want to come on up here?
All right, this is the fun stuff. We get to recognize all these fine folks that had athletic success in the fall. So I'm going to run through it pretty quickly here. We get a nice crowd. Starting with cross country, we had Jason Provost as our NEC co-runner of the year and Salem News cross country runner of the year. We had Charlie Bossler as an NEC co-runner of the year, so both runners were from Beverly this year, which was great. And our last honoree for cross country was NEC All-Star and Salem News All-Star Grace Corbett. Oh, this is Grace. Okay, next we have football cheer, NEC All-Star, Eliana Gallo. For football, we had for All-Conference and Salem News All-Star, Floyd White. No. Floyd? We also had, for All-Conference, Jerome Sutton. He was also a Salem News All-Star. And Sean Costa as All-Conference and Salem News All-Star. Sean. For NEC All-Conference, we had Ricky Torres. NEC All-Conference, Teddy Fisher. And we had two NEC All-Stars, Alex Marquez and Callan McKay. Okay, on to field hockey. NEC Conference and Salem News All-Star, Madeline LeBlanc. NEC All-Conference and Salem News All-Star, Avery LeBlanc. Oh, excuse me, Fiona Bazin. I'm sorry. Reading out of order. Fiona Bazin. Salem News All-Star, Avery LeBlanc. And NEC All-Stars, Olivia Filatra and Morgan Linsky. Okay, for golf, we had NEC All-Conference and Salem News All-Star, Anthony Barra. And NEC All-Stars, Andrew Murphy and Henry Robinson. Congrats, Henry. Okay, we have boys soccer next. Our NEC Player of the Year and Salem News All-Star, Daniel Silva. NEC Conference and Salem News All-Star, Thomas O'Neill. NEC All-Conference and Salem News All-Star, Connor Sullivan. Congratulations, Connor. And NEC All-Stars, Daniel Wilder, Andrew Braganca, and Jackson Merritt. Okay, girls soccer. NEC All-Conference and Salem News All-Star, Jaden Simpson. NEC All-Conference and Salem News All-Star, Clara Costro. NEC All-Stars, Genevieve Bellotti and Sasha Miller. Actually, Sasha was a Salem News All-Star as well. And lastly, volleyball. We had NEC All-Star and Salem News All-Star, Reese Quietek. and NEC All-Star Fiona Long. Congratulations to all our fall All-Stars.
We're not done yet.
So before all the students leave, what I'd like to do after we recognize our Project 351 representatives, that we also maybe have a 5-minute recess to get a photo with everybody together to celebrate their accomplishments. At this time, I'd like to call forward Ariana Neal, the 2026 Beverly Middle School Project 351 representative. And just like Ariana, to briefly describe her experience at Project 351 this year. And then also, we're going to call forward Sadie Brennan, because Sadie was the 2022 representative for Beverly Middle School. So Project 351, just briefly, is a program that was started in the Commonwealth about 15 years ago now at this point. I'm blanking on Caroline's last name, but Caroline has put a tremendous amount, thank you, has put a tremendous amount into launching and sustaining this program, and has gotten the buy-in of every governor since 2011. The project happens over Martin Luther King Day weekend, and generally speaking, one community member is sent from each sending city or town. So a regional school district may have the benefit of selecting 2, 3, 4, 5, how many of our cities or towns are in the region. It is the selection of the middle school principal, and but Beverly has one. Some of the larger cities do have more, but generally speaking, it's to represent the 351 cities and towns from across the Commonwealth in a day of service. And so, sorry, I'm having a lot of clumsies tonight, if you didn't notice. But if you wouldn't mind just briefly describing your day of service. Don't feel to go dissertation length. I don't want to put you on the spot. And then Sadie, if you wouldn't mind describing your ongoing involvement.
When we all met, all the ambassadors we met for the first time, they introduced us on what we'd be doing for the year. We met a ton of people, and we met our team leaders who will help guide us throughout the year. We also met other ambassadors that we can work with and talk with, and we did 2 hours of service, and we helped a lot of people over those 2 hours. We did different things like make blankets, make kits for others, and package food. And then over these last 2 months, we've been starting to work on our spring project, and it is a clothing drive. We are working with Cradles to Crowns. Each town can work with other towns, and they have a host site, and you contact you contact the people that are in charge of these host sites. You ask for permission. You then make a team, and with this team you will make boxes, and with these boxes you can also make flyers and posters to help spread the word and get this project out to the community, to let the community help and make a difference with this project. It's about clothing insecurity this year, and it's the major focus for this project this year is the Starfish Project, and it's getting clothing for infants and toddlers.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. You did a great job. And feel free to keep standing up. But Ariana, would you mind describing your ongoing involvement?
Yep, so Ariana couldn't have said it better than I probably could. Spring service is the first really big service that these ambassadors have, and I feel like mine was like 2 days ago, but it's crazy that I'm already here. Yeah, it's a super unique experience. And I remember going into an eighth grade, I didn't really know what to expect. But the community that was built in my time, and I hope you continue with it, is something that I have not seen anywhere else through any of the other multiple programs I've been a part of in like leadership positions. And then we have another thing. So what she was referring to is called Launch in the Project 351 community. And then again in the spring in April, we'll have something called Reunion, where all of the towns will come together again at Gillette Stadium, which is a super cool experience that we get to do every year. And it's just so interesting and fun to like go through the years, but then also watch the new eighth graders get inducted into the program and see just how they take their own fun spin on their service. And yeah, it's been a super fun and unique experience. And I'm sad it's over, but yeah.
Awesome.
I will ask, how about we go till 8 p.m.? We have an 8-minute recess. We have a lot on our docket this evening. Go amongst them. Go. Kim, you good? All right, coming back in. That was a lovely little break. Next item on the agenda is approval of our meeting records. However, due to a little kerfuffle, we don't have those available. So we're moving on. We already took item 4. Thank you, everybody, for letting Delia go ahead of all the honorees. Our next item on our agenda is an open forum for resident voice or input into agenda-related items, policy BEDH, an opportunity to speak about topics included or not included as part of this agenda. Any person wishing to make such a request should arrive at the posted meeting in time or email residentvoice@beverlyschools.org in advance of the meeting. For any alternative accommodations, please note, everybody, and I know some of you are new and maybe we haven't had one of these yet, public comment is not a discussion, nor is it a debate or dialogue between the individuals and the school committee. It is the individual's opportunity to express an opinion on issues within the school committee's authority. Remarks are addressed through the chair, who may refer items to the superintendent for future consideration. So this evening, we have my friend, Mr. Caleb. We're sharing a microphone.
Thank you so much.
There's a smushy thing. There you go.
Oh, so adequate. Caleb McCauley. Oh, a little too close. 3 Henderson Avenue, Beverly. So I'm a CPAC rep, but I'm coming more as a parent today. First, I wanted to say thank you so much to Peter, Mr. Cushing, Dr. Cushing. He has been very adequate, very accessible for so many parents. And I was at the North Beverly PTO meeting, and he was so accommodating to so many parents. He made it seem that his voice is easy to communicate with, and it was just very appreciative as a parent to have that familiarity. I also want to say that I'm so appreciative that he went to the library resource fair the other day. He was the representative of the Beverly School District, which I've never seen a superintendent represent the Beverly School District at a resource fair, so I want to give him huge cahoots. I would hope that maybe during one of these 400 celebration events we have going on, we could get something with Peter, the CPAC, you guys with the school committee, and even the city council, and have like a whole resource sort of fair of tents of different town facilities where people can come and talk to issues going on, because I feel like having that accessibility is really important. And coming to these meetings is really hard for people. I know, because I come. So trying to go to the events where people are, I think, is a really important thing for this group and every other group that represents the city to do. So lastly, I would just like to say that I appreciate the work from the committee that we're working on right now around the special ed issues. I think there are some positive things around not just the audit, but trying to find some goals that we could actually work on. I also would like to highlight a positive right now. North Beverly had their AIM teacher leave for maternity leave. And from what I've heard so far, there has been a really good coverage. And that's hard to say because there was a lot of fears from a lot of parents that there wasn't going to be that coverage there. So I would like to highlight that North Beverly has done a really great job making sure the AIM program has stayed successful. Other than that, I am hopeful for the next few months between the committee, between all these events going on, that we're all going to access the community and we're going to make them feel a part of this school district. And I just want to thank you all. Thank you.
Okay, you can come back every time. Okay, our next item on our agenda is items by consensus.
Madam President, could I address an email that we received, or are we past that?
You can do that in the end under communications.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, don't be. We are all learning. We're all new or in new seats, as I like to say, butts and seats, and it's fine. And if somebody were to send an email to the group email, and they asked for it to be read, then I would read it at that portion of the agenda. Otherwise, if you get a communication from somebody, regardless of how, or if you go to a PTO meeting or something like that, then you can report out in the communications portion, which this week is on this agenda is item number 10. All right, so items by consensus. There are a group of warrants. Motion to approve the items by consensus as outlined below. The superintendent recommends the school. Oh, yes. Okay, sorry. I read that wrong. The motion is to approve the items by consensus as outlined on your agenda and or in your packet, A through D. Thank you, Ms. Coelho. Second. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Mr. Taylor, do I see your hand? Or were you seconding? Were you firsting?
I was trying to second, but
Okay. Any questions, comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, that passes 9-0. Sorry, I'm scribbling my notes over here, trying to keep a skeleton crew of meeting minutes. Next item on the agenda, lucky number 7, superintendent reports. Before I go there, I'm going to say one of the things that superintendent is going to do is give his report on, like, his mid-year progress report, I guess we'll call it. And I want to thank, there was one member of our body who did a lot of homework and looked into the evidence that was sent. And although we didn't receive any requests for additional evidence, I do want to call out that, I see that work, I recognize that work, and I appreciate it. So you are not going to hear anything new from Dr. Cushing this evening because nobody asked for any additional evidence. If you looked at your packets, you're not going to see anything new or additional in his report. Tag, you're it.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say I'm humbled by the public comment and really appreciate that. But I also just want to briefly say that the principal of North Beverly and Ms. Spolansky deserve a lot of credit in really beating the bushes and trying to find the best person possible to make sure that, staff are a finite and scarce resource, and making sure that we are trying to find the best people for maternity leaves is a really tall task, and they both deserve a lot of credit. So just quickly today, here's the agenda for my report. I won't read that. I just want to call to attention for the community and anyone watching that this Saturday there will be an active bystander training hosted at the Beverly Public Library's main branch in the Sawyer Room. The QR codes, both QR codes, they're a little different, but they both scan to the same form. 40 seats were available. There's a cap of 40 seats for this. And so if anybody is interested, it's a great opportunity to learn how to use the principles of nonviolence to safely support community members when they are experiencing harassment or discrimination. And I think this goes along the lines of how can we help people maybe disagree better and be better to one another in our seemingly evolving or devolving society at times. I also want to call out that 1 month ago yesterday, the African American Read-In by Endicott College, as part of a larger NCTE national movement to bring together students, educators, and community members reading works by African American authors, happened on February 10th. Really excited about this. Here are some students presenting to our students in Miss Hashie's grade 3 class at Hannah Elementary School. And the students, I witnessed a few classrooms that day. The students did a really great job of dialogically reading the books to the students and had created PowerPoints and enlarged the images so that it was really accessible for students. And the Endicott students really did a phenomenal job. I want to give a shout out to Dr. Joy Erickson, who launched this project, and many of the other staff from Endicott. And we're really hoping we had readers, I know for sure, at Hannah, North Beverly, the middle school, and I know other schools, they're just slipping me right now, but really look forward to expanding this across all of our K through 8 experiences next year. Moving on to a request of the committee. So the last committee had a presentation by Adam Costa and Olivia Mangello requesting an out-of-state field trip for the band to go to, I believe, Hershey Park in Pennsylvania. And one of the things that was mentioned during that there were a number of students who weren't going to be able to fit because we were at the point where the finances wouldn't work for another large coach bus. So what I did was I asked Mr. Costa to go back to the drawing board to look to see if any coach company had a smaller bus or anything available so that students weren't left out. He did that, and the cost would have been exorbitantly prohibitive, as well as the fact that there was no equipment available for the time outside of a full-size bus. Transportation costs are, I can't really give it justice to say how expensive it is. And what I did then was I asked Mr. Costa to work with our transportation department and to use a school vehicle to be able to transport students to this so that we were, because that committee made it clear that we don't want to leave kids out, as none of us do. Sometimes there are limitations. I believe that of the 11, 7 students were going, approximate numbers, but working with Dana, they have figured out a way to make this happen. And then thank you to Emma for really having an eye on policy, that policy EE specifically states school buses will not be used for out-of-state trips unless the school committee grants specific approval. School buses may be used, well, that's not important. So I am here tonight to ask for that specific approval for this band trip to be able to go out of state with our buses. All costs are being covered by the band and the students going. Happy to take any questions, but this is a request.
Before we really begin discussions, I need a motion and a second, and then I have something to say.
So moved.
All right, Ms. Coelho first, and Ms. Ducharme, did you second?
Sure, yes.
Fantastic. And yes, Ms. Coelho, I see your hand up.
So I had one question on the bus. I would fully approve this. I'm all for stuff like that. Between Dana and the Queen of the Beans back there, did we look to see which option would be more fiscally and financially responsible between using a regular bus or one of our electric buses?
So I'm going to be, that didn't even enter the equation.
May I answer? I'm interrupting you. Very rude. The electric bus can't make it without stopping a charge. It doesn't have that kind of range. So actually, I would amend your question to say, can we take a shorter, like, could we maybe get by with one of the vans instead of one of the buses? But I also kind of think that that is maybe micromanaging. If they have a vehicle, really, we're being asked, can they take a vehicle? And that's what's against the policy. But I love the thought of taking an electric bus, but they'd have to stop lots of times to recharge.
To be able to eat and go to the bathroom anyway, and most of those stations have one of those to plug right in anyway.
So you are correct. The size of the bus and the time to charge. A recent experience myself on a tour of New England for hockey really proved how great my electric vehicle is, but that was able to charge fully in about an hour. The capacity of these buses would probably take about 6 hours to fully charge. So unfortunately, the technology is not there yet for a long trip like this.
Yeah,
And
I love that answer.
And it will not be a full-size bus. But, really trying to find the last committee, I felt it was a charge to figure out a different way, and in a way, we kind of are breaking the mold to do this.
Mr. Mayor, Mike?
I did not raise my hand to speak to this, but Dr. Cushing, I just want to, our buses can fast charge too, correct?
Yes, but even with fast charging, you're probably still looking at a 3 hour. I mean, I can't speak specifically, but the size of the buses,
Yeah. but
comparatively, I don't think it would
I
be a
can't
meal.
either, but I don't want to say publicly that with a fast charger, it'd be unfeasible or infeasible. What I do want to ask about is seatbelts, because whether or not they're used, I think with the travel buses, there are seatbelts in every seat, for every seat. With our school buses, we don't have seatbelts. Or do we on some of our buses now?
I can't speak to that.
All right, so this is.
Well, so let me, if I could, I bring it up because it's long been a concern of mine. Way back when I was in the legislature, I used to file the bill every 2 years to mandate seatbelts on school buses. It's relevant to the thought that they're going to be traveling interstate on interstate highways. And so, to me, I don't know that I'm ready to vote tonight on this, because to me, that's a question that really needs an answer. So.
All right, so what I was going to say is that's actually perfect. We can table this because my mistake, it doesn't have a star next to it, and we shouldn't be voting on it this evening anyway. I would also say that the policy must have a mistake in it because it says it was last revised in 2013. And in fact, every time we review a policy, that date is supposed to get updated. So for all of my new policy wonks, that's like another example of something we can catch and something we can fix.
So I
don't
think
have that reviewed date.
it might be a
on mine.
cutoff, but this I cut and pasted earlier today to a new doc because it's just easier to quickly get to.
Okay. Our printed
of
copy
April
doesn't have
30th.
that. Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to, we're going to table this item, and I heard 2 requests over there, and those are, you're going to get those, and in 2 weeks, we'll meet again, and it'll still be in time, right?
I believe so, but what's nice is we have a joint meeting,
We do have a joint meeting in 1 week from now. Okay.
potentially.
Oh, I hear that somebody has input into that agenda, too. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Because I'll get the answers post-haste and do a blind carbon copy email for everyone.
Okay, we can add that. It'll be a quick vote. We'll do it at the end. We'll let the city councilors go home first.
Sadly, the bus that we will be taking will not have the nice painting. So.
Wah, wah.
All right. So there was a request to briefly discuss career CTE, which is Career Technical Education. Some people previously would call it the tech or the voc or something along those lines, but the DESE approved language is CTE, Career Technical Education. And the residents, the 8th grade residents of Beverly, there were 181 students, so I believe about 167 or 169 of those were from Beverly Middle School, and the remainder were private school, homeschool, however they may be, students applying to NSATs, Essex North Shore Agricultural Technical School. And so at present, there are 57 students admitted and presumably accepted based on their rolling admission. That means that the way I read that is there's 130 remaining students who are on the wait list who may have an interest in CTE education experience. Beverly High School has innovation career pathways that the district is committed to expanding. The district, I want to say I'm committed to expanding that, also committed to looking at what Chapter 74 programs in the future or other options that the community or community members may have to provide our students options. Because a child may be in the 8th grade and thinking they want to be an electrician or a plumber. And when they get to Essex, there's almost a second admissions process that is after your 9th grade exploratory experience, where then you get, hopefully, one of your top 3 choices. And that may not be your number 1 choice. So students may, end up selecting, they may select, as an example, electrical, plumbing, and culinary, with culinary being their 3rd, and they end up in culinary. Or they may end up in plumbing, or whatever it may be. And so trying to figure out ways that we in Beverly can leverage options to expand both our career pathways, and they're listed this way because the innovation career pathways are specifically grant supported and supported through the state. And many of you have probably heard the way that the current governor and the previous governor were really supporting innovation pathways for traditional high schools to expand their, in a way, I don't want to say technical, but I'm going to use the word technical, to expand their technical experiences for students. So the approved innovation career pathways are business and finance, environmental and life science, and healthcare and social assistance. However, Beverly has a robust course offering catalog that also allows students to go through career pathways in hospitality, education, business marketing, and early college should actually be up top under that one. I misplaced it. But early college is now a career pathway that's approved and grant supported by the Commonwealth through the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. We also further have alternatives for Salem. Salem right now is in the process of approving a new Salem High School and building. And generally speaking, when that happens, and given how CTE is expanding for so many students as an important career track or training track, there's no guarantee that seats in Salem will remain forever for Beverly. So we need to plan for variability in options for our students moving forward. The NSATS After Dark program is also an option for students to still be Beverly students and be picked up about halfway through the day and have an experience at Essex North Shore. So I am very committed to this. As a high school principal, I had previously started the application process on this, and as an assistant superintendent, I have worked on CTE expansion as well. So I know both processes fairly well, and want to partner to be able to find ways to provide students the experiences that they're looking for, while also realizing that, our budget needs to be considered as well.
Yes, Ms. Robinson. Thank you. I'm just curious if there's any talk of being able to have some of our students go to, I know we have After Dark, but have some our students go over and do a shop that they might want, and having some of their students come over here for an AP course with so many, there's so many degree programs, the programs that students are going on to college from NSATS, which I think is fantastic. It's a fantastic option. And we know that a lot of our students aren't getting in who need to be there. So I'm just wondering if there's any conversations that happen about things like that, just maybe bringing some of them here and letting some of our kids go there for.
I have not had those conversations at this point, but that's definitely something I can bring up with Dr. Riccio. One of the challenges with traditional CTE schools, there are many schools across the Commonwealth that are more of a comprehensive high school model that have within it certain CTE programs. Many of those schools have abandoned the A week, B week. So A week, you go academics, B week, you go shop, or vice versa, depending on which one you're in. So it's essentially squeezing your academics into half the time to afford the opportunity for the shop. One of the challenges might be that, the students are off academic time and on shop time, and there is a a guideline. They're not strict requirements, but DESE is getting more strict with them on the nearly 1,000 hours of CTE shop time for students, because what they've seen is an erosion of that comprehensive high school model, taking away that A week, B week. However, I do think it's a great topic to bring up to Dr. Riccio.
No, I should have thought of that, though. I
Nope,
forgot about
don't.
their every other week, but.
But we are currently sending students as part of the After Dark program, so there might be opportunities.
Mr. Taylor?
I don't need a response necessarily to this, but I'm just concerned. I'm hearing rumors that things are happening in Salem, that various programs may be closed down. So I don't know if that's the case. You don't have to speak to this if you don't wish to.
It's not that I don't wish to, it's I don't know enough. I know that when schools go through the MSBA process, as part of that, having had intimate experience with that previously, one of the things we had to do was say how we were going to expand programs. We in my previous district, we were looking at 4. I'm sure that there is similar when you get to the brass tacks of construction costs. If you're going to reduce a program, one program I've unfortunately had to reduce in the past, or came in just after it was reduced actually, was auto body. And the problem was finding an educator for multiple years really caused the program to die off, because there wasn't somebody active recruiting, actively showing, and those personnel are so hard to lure to. I'll tell you, finding electrical instructors is very hard, because what they're making in industry far outstrips what they could make in the educational field. So.
All right, so I'll just say that somewhere in the past, I'm looking across the table, we had the superintendent of the school formerly known as the Aggie as our guest, and we were able to ask a whole bunch of questions to her. So we can think about whether this body has a quote-unquote appetite to do that again. I think the last time we did that, I submitted a whole bunch of questions ahead of time, including but limited to, and not limited to, whatever. Could we have a satellite campus, right? Could we do something more, right? Were there other ways that we could try to expand so that more of our children who want to go there and get their number one choice could get their number one choice? Are we, limited by, for instance, classroom space? And if so, was there something we could do? Certainly we don't have the Claude, what was his middle initial? H? Patton wing anymore. However, so I don't imagine that we're going to stand up that particular one, but there probably are some that we could do, right? So if, again, we could try to look into that maybe longer term as you're under this umbrella of the pathways. And then if there's an appetite, we could maybe invite that superintendent here. Yes, Mayor.
Thanks, President. If nobody has it at the kind of tip of their tongue, it's okay, we can follow up, but do we right now know exactly what's being offered through After Dark this school year, and at the same time, what we're taking advantage of in our partnership at Salem High?
Those are on an enrollment report I submitted earlier. I know, exactly. I don't have it at my fingertips.
That's okay.
But I can re-forward and send it. It also gives the numbers in all of our pathways as well. So I can make sure that that is resent to everybody.
Yeah, thanks. I will editorialize on one point. I think the number of options that are provided our Beverly High students at the Essex Tech for After Dark options is frustratingly small.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really, I think, undermines the attractiveness of it for the kids to take part, even those who are looking for something. Yeah. Thanks.
Yes, Ms. Robinson?
Just one more question. Do we have any data on how many students are returning after a freshman year to Beverly High School?
That data exists. I don't have it with me, and we can definitely look at that. There is also, pre-October 1 and post-October 1 returns. So.
Yes, Mr. Taylor?
Can you talk about that more? That was an interesting editorial comment you made.
Sure, we've been frustrated. They don't offer much. They don't, I think it's only 3 different things that get offered out of their, I don't know how many they offer in total, but it's very few. Other people have ideas.
All right, I think I saw, whose hand went up first? Ms. Ducharme, then Ms. Frost, you're in the queue.
I was going to say, I'm happy to let Ms. Frost go first. We might have the same question or comment. I agree, it's frustrating. I also think that they're not the classes that are the highly desirable classes. So that's part of the frustration. Like Jack, my son is at Essex Tech, he's a freshman. We had a lot of robust conversation in our family about whether or not the better path for our family, and I know this is not unique to our family, was to stay at Beverly and then do the After Dark program. But really the clincher was that the programs that he thought that he wanted were not available in the After Dark program.
Ms. Frost?
My son participated 1 semester in the After Dark program, and yeah, there were 3 options: health assisting, and I apologize that I don't know the other 2, but it would, it's not it's something, it's not perfect. It's something to build off of and learn and grow from. So I don't want to totally like poo-poo it. It's just, it's a seed.
Yes, Mayor Mike
I will
Cahill.
say the first couple of years of After Dark, there were more offerings. They've only gone down. And we fought and fought to get them to offer electrical, which they offered 1 year, and then after that said they couldn't. So it's not getting better.
Right. So I think that, rather than end on a negative Nelly note, we'll end on a positive Patty note, which is that I love to hear that not only are we trying to continually expand our own career pathways, but to have the potential of standing up our own 74. There's a lot of times on this body, we've had conversations about we have to be very careful to not compete, right? We signed a non-compete with that group, and under the premise that they'll take some number of our students and we won't try to keep our students at home by offering the same thing. I think we're in a position where that's maybe we have earned a little wiggle room because our students who go there are not getting into their first choice, or maybe not even in their second choice, or they're not even offering, for instance, electrical in the After Dark. So there's some positive traction there that I'm excited to hear that we're at least investigating. Yeah, that is my positive, Patty. Yes, Maddie.
I was just curious how many students are attending both Salem and the After Dark program? And also, sorry, to follow up with that, what is there a cost that we pay for those programs? I think we've talked about this before, but just a refresher.
Yeah,
would be
I'll have to get I'll forward out after this meeting tonight. I will find the report, and then you might have the cost.
You have to unmute your microphone from the back.
But I do have a report that lists out the number of kids at a point in time, and I can just make sure that that's still accurate.
We have approximately 25 students in each of the programs, so 25 students at Salem and 25 students in the After Dark program at Essex North Shore. The program cost is approximately $7,500 at Essex North Shore, and it's approximately $5,600 at Salem. And the Salem program does not include transportation, where the Essex program does.
And Emma, do you know what shops are offered at each?
They don't always list those on the bills.
I was
So
just
no,
gonna-
not off the top of my
I was
head.
just going to say, see, you got yourself in trouble there by knowing one answer. You're going to get asked another question.
Those are listed on the bottom of the enrollment report, and I will make sure that that gets sent out to everybody.
Okay, fantastic. All right, last look around the room before we go to your next item. Okay, go.
All right, so superintendent formative evaluation. About a week and a half ago now, I forwarded out a memo with links to available evidence. And what I did was I took that and just created a brief slideshow of about 75, I'm sorry, about 10 slides or so. So the 4 goals, really looking at effective entry and direction setting, momentum, professional practice, and safety and preparedness. Really, like, I wanted to put them in buckets for everybody to understand where they fall, and then I will get very specific, but these I see as the 4 pillars of progress. And diving in, so goal 1, effective entry and direction setting, is the actual title.
I hate to interrupt, I don't do it in bad faith. Neither my agenda here nor the one that I think is most recent has this listed under superintendent's report. Am I missing the right agenda?
So what I'm going to say to you is that under the umbrella, now I'm hitting my mic, under the umbrella that is his superintendent report, he has some wiggle room, and we did talk about last time that he would be bringing, you got this report in your mail along with evidence, and so he's reporting out, nobody asked for any additional evidence. I thought that he should speak to it, so, because not, the public didn't get it. There's nothing to vote on.
No, I hear you, but it's not in the agenda. We're supposed to pay close attention to the open meeting law. He can do it next Wednesday.
There's nothing to deliberate, so I don't believe that, and I believe that he has wiggle room underneath his umbrella of his quote-unquote superintendent report. This is part of his report. Yes, Ms. Ducharme?
I'm following Mayor Cahill, and I noticed that it said budget update and didn't say superintendent evaluation. However, I do think in plenty of previous agendas, we had superintendent update without necessarily bulleting what each section was going to say. So, and I also think that you might be right about there not being necessarily an action item.
Well, there is not an action item. However, I will look across the table and ask you if you'd like to deliver this report in 2 weeks from now.
I defer to the will of the committee. I'm happy to do it now. I'm happy to do it on the 18th. I'm happy to do it on any day,
Not
anywhere.
on the 18th.
Correct, but I'm happy to do it anytime, anywhere.
All right. I will ask you respectively to hold this report and move on to the budget.
Sounds good to me. All right. Budget update and all right. So just a quick presentation order, budget timeline, quick review, budget requests, FY26 level service budget carry forward, and fiscal shifts connected to that since the last presentation of 2026. So here's our timeline just for reference. The critical essential question I presented during the priorities. How do we maintain and improve upon instructional practices and comprehensive student support while operating within fiscal limits? All right. The budget priorities. This is just the overview slide. I'm not going to review every single one again, but to provide robust and diversified student learning opportunities, provide comprehensive student supports in a least restrictive environment, long-range strategic planning and prioritization to support student belonging, engagement, and learning, and then to further enhance communication with our stakeholders. So some budget requests that we've had comprehensive meetings with principals, directors, and to really get a sense of things that are needed. And so these fall into categories of budget requests and capital requests. So what I see here for us is to really set the table for the district's needs moving forward, not just this year, but in coming years. If a need is met, and I'm happy to share this out with everybody, and if a need is unmet, the need doesn't go away. It's just that we're not filling that need at this time. And so in comprehensive conversations with the school leaders, looking at 2 special education teachers for Beverly High School, looking at additional coaching support, be they assistant coaches or other supports in specifically spring track, wrestling, and gymnastics. Also for Beverly High School, an electronic hall pass system to help monitor and support students throughout the day. At Beverly Middle School, an art teacher, a special education teacher, a reading specialist, an assistant principal, and a custodian. I want to speak just real quick specifically about the custodian because, you know, there's been a lot of conversation around positions. I'm a firm believer that no matter where you are in the district, every position supports students, all right? A clean building, all right, and building square footage, I believe there are 5 levels of cleanliness from hospital grade down the spectrum. Generally speaking, schools fall into category 3 for cleanliness, and there are formulas that specifically state like the number of custodians that should be per square footage, how much they can clean, how much they can do over hours. Every single position in this district, all right, is imperative to students. The teachers in the classroom, yes, the paraprofessionals, the cafeteria person who connects with a student as they come through the lunch line, who knows their names, who talks to them, the assistant principal who builds a relationship, the principal, hopefully the superintendent connecting with students, which I look forward to do more of. But really making sure that, you know, when we look at positions, they're fundamentally critical across the spectrum for our students. Moving on to budget requests for elementary, a float nurse position, restoring a position that was previously there. I'm a firm believer that some of our schools are getting to the size where assistant principals are something that needs to be considered. Our principals in our elementary schools are largely the only people doing supervision and evaluation and supporting staff. And that is a heavy load to do those the way that they should be done. Our principals do a phenomenal job, but to be able to meet the complex needs of our students and to be able to be a support, assistant principals are something that this district should really consider seriously, if not this year, but in future years. Pre-K paraprofessionals, teaching fellows. Teaching fellows are generally speaking from Endicott, but are available from other institutions as well, who are invaluable additions to the school. Unfortunately, Endicott only has a handful available for the next academic year, but we are hopeful to have 2 across the district coming here. Elementary special education teacher, kindergarten paraprofessional, and an SSP paraprofessional. District-wide, looking at paraprofessionals to support our intensive autism programming and to really move us to give full support for our students. Again, I'm addressing needs and requests that, you know, over the coming weeks, we will be sitting with budget and seeing what might be able to be traded or what retirement offsets there are or where we can save to make things happen to make sure that our programs are moving forward. Capital expenditures, this is not the entire list, but it's what I see as the superintendent as the high dollar, high value things that are going to have to be considered either this year or in coming years. So the Hannah Playground, and a playground is more than just the climbing structure. All right, when people think of a playground, a lot of times they think of a climbing structure. I think that the work that Gabrielle has done with play, all right, at that school, but looking at what an inclusive playground looks like, looking beyond the play structure as how do you position rocks to give kids a challenge to jump off of, all right? Or how do you position trees or plantings to give a sense of a warm, welcoming environment, you know, really wrapped in nature. The Cove Gym floor is something that's going to need attention, as well as wall mats moving forward. They've been taped and retaped again. So we're considering ways to reposition them in the gym at the ends for that. Looking at tennis court resurfacing, The main Beverly High School basketball court resurfacing, switching from an oil-based surface to a water-based surface. Ayers parking lot is going to need attention. The Centerville roof and boiler are definitely considerations. Cafeteria tables at the Ayers Raliside School. Across the district, security cameras to cover various blind spots. I want to be very clear that this district has amazing coverage. I think I've looked at every single camera online, and we'll talk about that, on my evaluation next time. And nursing AEDs are coming to a point of needing replacement, 12 district-wide. I didn't finish my statement of scoreboards at 40 and Hurd Stadium. And so those are coming to a point. Games at 40 Field are really amazing. I'm going to skip down over transportation here for a second. They're a really amazing experience to have those night games, but there are certain structural limitations. Those are press box, concession stand, electrical upgrades that are needed, and bathrooms, fencing to really control the flow, a ticket booth, certain things that we can do and fix in the interim as not needing, say, a full ticket booth right away, but just thinking about long-range planning, which really goes to goal 3 or priority 3. Transportation, also looking at 2 vans. We have a slightly aging fleet that's been replenished by the electrical buses. And evacuation stair chairs for Beverly Middle School. All right. So in the event of an emergency, person immobilized, these stair chairs will literally take a person and just glide down the stairs. All right. As opposed to having to catch and walk up, carry a person out. Sorry. So this is the, sorry.
Yes, Mr. Sherm.
Dr. Cushing, can you talk for a moment about the fields? And I understand and respect that they're very important to our students and the community. Doesn't that fall under the city? No? Yeah?
It's a shared.
Sure,
I mean,
understand.
they're shared spaces.
No, I understand.
And just looking at, I also want to say that these aren't rank ordered. I don't want anyone to think that one is above the other. And, you know, the reality is, though, is that having games there is a wonderful thing, but it also poses various challenges. The field is it was, I'm stumbling over myself here, but in central Massachusetts, Friday nights are made under the lights, be it for soccer, field hockey, or football. All right. The Friday night games are really ubiquitous. And I will say the games here, if you were not there, seeing those stands completely packed with Beverly students, seeing the way the community came out, whoever's idea it was for the lights and the stands and doing that is on the right track. And I know I watch the meetings, but I just don't know. But looking at things that we need to do to upgrade, also, those are marketing tools for Beverly students to stay in Beverly. High quality facilities, be they theater for our drama and musical kids, be it robotics infrastructure to support a robotics and engineering program, be it athletics facilities. I was very deliberate in how I listed those because I don't want people to think that it's just athletics. It's not. But those are recruiting tools that get kids to say, you want to know something? Being a Panther's for me.
I appreciate your point about it's a collaborative process, and I definitely didn't mean to draw a distinction between the school's budget and the city's budget. And it's about conversation, transparency, sharing information. So thanks for elaborating.
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
Just a question, maybe you or the mayor can answer this. I don't know. You mentioned the Centerville roof replacement. I don't know if this is capital expenditures that need to happen in the next year or whether you're looking long-term, but I know that one of the roofs is on your list of, in the general, whatever that thing is, general debt obligation thingy plan.
Capital plan?
Thank you, that. When are you intending to start, and have you communicated with the mayor
So,
about
we
what
have,
that plan?
I won't speak for you, but
We all know that our 6 elementaries, the 5 Servings Elementary and McEwen, were built consecutively, one each year, between 1997 to 2003. So all the roofs and HVAC systems are coming up in the coming years to kind of life expectancy. Centerville's roof is problematic enough that it's, and the fact that Centerville has no gas. It's the one school in the city that's in a part of town where gas is not available. So Centerville is heated with oil, and then I think the cooking is propane. I'm looking around, but, so we have now for the second straight year applied to the state's Green Schoolworks Grant Program for funding to try to get a transition, right, planned that would bring air source heat pump heating and cooling into the building, and then we'd be looking to go into the state's
MSBA.
roof replacement through MSBA. So it's kind of a paired effort. Now, we'll see. We applied for funding for the second year in a row. In the first year, the only school districts that got money through that program were gateway cities and a couple of very, very rural districts. So we're putting our best foot forward on that, and if the grant money doesn't come, we've got to start looking at, at other options to move forward. In the coming, 3 to 5 to 10 years, it's all going to happen, all those 6 buildings.
so the MSBA for what was previously formerly known as their Accelerated Repair Program, and it might still be called that, but they were on an every year cycle. And when about 3 years ago, the inflation really hit the state MSBA program, and school construction, their main school construction projects were starting to see massive shortfalls. All right, so a $300 million high school ballooned to $350. That delta wasn't covered by MSBA, and was covered, but the resources weren't available. So they suspended the accelerated repair programs to divert all of the money into the core. Now, MSBA has switched to the green repair, accelerated repair programs for roofs and boilers. It used to be windows and doors as well, but it's roofs and boilers primarily now. That's an every 2-year cycle. Right now, we're in the off year, and they will be opening up and will be needing to be deployed, be due probably in 1 year. A statement of interest needs approval from both the city council as well as the school committee, all right, to move forward and be accepted. So we'll be working with our partners to really see if that's something that we're going to apply for next year or the year after. Because one of the other things then is it becomes a capital expenditure for whatever portion thereof that they're not picking up. And I don't think the Centerville roof is one that is really, so one of the things you need to do is you need to do infrared roof scans and different things like that. For some reason, I'm remembering a conversation where we might have to do a little bit more digging on the Centerville roof because the style doesn't lend itself to infrared roof scans. So this is well on my radar, and very good experience with SOIs, having had several approved, but you need to make sure that you're A, answering honestly, B, your roof is a certain age, because MSBA will reject basically on that sometimes, most times, and also not just air source heat pumps, but what other else might be available as an option to reduce the carbon footprint of our only oil burning building.
Yes, Ms. Robinson.
Thank you. I just have a couple questions about a couple different topics that you brought up. So how much would a electronic pass system cost what levels are you looking at it for?
Right now, high school requested. Past experience with those would probably be about $5,000.
5,000, okay.
As you're probably aware, these companies like per pupil expenditure. So they charge you X dollars and cents per, as opposed to purchasing.
And my other question, just a little questions about teaching fellows. I'm just not something, I'm just not familiar with having them. I know we have them in our district, but are they all graduate students?
Yes.
And how many would we like? How many teaching fellows would we like to have?
I believe the number was 3 across the district, but I don't have that in front of me right now. But I do know that Endicott only has available to us 2 because of a smaller class.
Okay. And how much do we pay them? I just have like a few little questions.
It's not that we pay them. It's that we
Stipend? No?
pay Endicott, and that
Okay.
offsets their tuition. I'm looking to Emma just to make sure I'm not stepping into a bear trap for tomorrow where it's like, I want to make sure I didn't mess up, in all honesty.
Yeah.
It's just a shade under. Oh, I'm saying. You are. I'm not saying you. Listen, guys, I don't fall asleep after this because I wonder, like, no, I'm saying for myself, like, there you go. Now I'm not sleeping tonight. But I always worry about what I say because, so I just need to make, that's not an Emma comment. That's a Peter comment. Peter.
a year.
20.
They're
Just a shade under 20.
Yeah, 19,300 for the ones at Endicott. We also have one fellow through Merrimack University that is works with our English language learners.
Okay.
And one of those teachers, and that one, the Merrimack one, is 20,000 and change, under $21,000.
That's per fellow. And
yeah, and we have one from Merrimack and 2 from Endicott.
Okay. And just what you said that I'm wondering what populations they can serve, and can they work alone, or do they need to be supervised? I'm just trying to think about how
They need to be supervised.
student facing.
Right, they need to be supervised. They're not all the time, but I mean, they're partnering with a cooperating teacher.
Yeah.
And, they are, able to run small groups, able to support, but it's an educational experience for them as a pre-service teacher.
So this is like what formerly was known as graduate school student teaching, basically, is what a fellow is now.
I think I would consider it to be a little bit more robust than that, but, yeah.
Okay.
They're placed for the full year, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's a graduate student teacher might just be in for a semester, or might just pick up, like, they might take over a class working with, come into Danvers High School and work directly with you for one class and teach some lessons and things along that nature. But this is, really immersed every day there.
Okay.
In the back row, Ms. Brown.
And generally, they're licensed when they come in an area. They might getting their graduate in a different license area, like special ed or reading. So they're licensed already.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Ms. Ducharme.
Thank you for the preview. I assumed that when there was an item on the list, if there wasn't a number next to it, that the number was 1. But when we had
Correct.
fellows, okay, because I thought when you had the fellows screen, when you had the list up.
I think the fellows just had 1.
Yeah.
So I just needed to add a 2 there, but
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
We already have 2 in the budget and so this is a request for 1 additional,
Right.
which would bring the total to 4, not 3, so it'd be 3 between special education and reading from the Endicott program, and still the request that is a carryover item, so sort of a level service item in that we have 1 now, an EL fellow from Merrimack.
Thank you. And I wanted to recognize that you're giving us a preview for numbers that will come later. So it was
Right.
okay. I just wanted to know what I should be looking at. I saw that we had a couple of playgrounds on there. I recall during my resident rep days a couple years back that there was a presentation on the state of playgrounds. And it was like, here are our 6 playgrounds. Here's the condition of them. Here's how the priority of how we need to budget repairs. And then there was a conversation about whether or not to go to the PTOs about that. That's not the subject of conversation right now, so I won't express my thoughts on that, but I appreciate seeing that there because I think it's just a really big, important part of movement, particularly for our elementary school kids and our preschool kids. So I'm happy to see that there's some conversation around that. I understand there's always budget constraints, but made me very sad years ago to see caution tape around one of our playgrounds because it had already gotten to the point of like, we can't do that. Like it's in that. Looks like the mayor wants to say something.
Mayor Mike, are you wishing to speak? Are you wishing to address that comment before I call on Mr. Taylor? Mr. Taylor.
I want to go in a different direction, so Mr. Mayor, if you want to, okay. We don't need to go down a rabbit hole, but just I saw that one of the comments you made was the addition of a BMS reading specialist. And I didn't know if you had a chance or will intend to have a chance to talk to the CISL community about that. How you are approaching reading, et cetera, why you would bring on a reading specialist, et cetera. So I'll leave it there.
Appreciate that.
And as I understand it, these are requests from your team. They brought them forward. So if there's a request for XYZ, it's because some principal or some building brought that request forward.
Correct.
It's not necessarily you.
Right. I mean, if I were
Peter J. Cushing.
Yeah. I mean,
want.
look, we've had conversations about elementary school assistant principals, all right, internally. But, you know, I mentioned it last time that nobody questions, and I want to be clear, like an athletic director is an important part of a school district, all right? But I've also heard over the past 2.5 years of meetings about elementary strings, music, drama, music, all those types of things. Yet we do not have a designated person for fine and performing arts, as an example. If I were going to say like where this district needs to go, that should be on my list as an example. But I'm also realizing finite and scarce resources and really trying to focus on those needs, all right? I firmly believe that's a need. I believe a communications director, maybe shared with the city or not, is a need. But if we're talking about revenues versus expenditures not meeting up, all right, you know, there are certain things that as superintendent, I can't in good faith put forward, all right? We have an amazing world language program, but we don't have a world language director, all right? And I can go deeply into why those things are important and how I've seen them, for the two that I mentioned, fine and performing arts and world language, how I have seen them generate grant revenue, how I've seen them create foreign exchange program opportunities for students that are immersive. They're not just the tours that you might be used to. They're going and living with a family in Germany or Spain or Italy, all right? And then those students coming here and living with our families for 2 weeks, all right? Really trying to build immersive programs, all right? Those things touch kids' lives. And there are many other things that I could talk about that as a district of 4,600 students, that we need to start considering our needs and, in a way, our wants, but what do we need to become the district that we want to be? And, you know, I also realize, sorry, I apologize, I've been having a lot of trouble with my voice for the last 2 weeks following some illness. The reality is, though, is that, you know, going back to that essential question, like there are fiscal realities, all right? There are fiscal realities. And from a leadership perspective, like we're thin. I mean, all evaluations fall to our elementary school principals. Like that is a heavy burden. And I'm simply laying out on the table for this community and for this committee what I see are as the needs for this district. And I understand also, though, like I'm not buying gold faucets, and like that's not what I'm asking for. What I'm asking for And what I think we need to start having a long-range planning under Goal 3 is how are we going to look at those structural realities of available resources versus, and I don't mean to like, to say like, to give a pat on the back to what the mayor did last year, but the fact that only $180,000 or so went to the city side is not sustainable. Like cutting roads and sidewalks is not sustainable. Not purchasing police equipment is not sustainable. And again, I'm probably saying too much, okay? And that's my own bear trap. Like, but our reality is that there's X revenue and there's Y demand. And as a community, what are we prepared to do? And I didn't expect to get soapboxy, but what are we supposed to do?
This is a great time for me to say, let's go to the next agenda item.
Well, we're still at the agenda. We're still on this because in 2 weeks' time, sorry, I'm lost my thing. In 2 weeks' time, the reality has not gotten better. And come on. Okay, so I presented this slide, thanks to Emma, doing a great job, of what our level funding request was, all right, of $4.832 million, all right? And I'm here tonight to tell you that just in 2 weeks, all right, we've seen an increase of over $1 million, right? Healthcare is predicted in the 9% range. As we mentioned last time, as I mentioned last time, every percentage point increase is about $115,000. Increases to out of district and a reduction in Title I. So if you're not aware, last Wednesday or so, there was a call by the Commissioner of Education with all superintendents in the state, and there were a number of topics on there. Massachusetts several years ago raised the minimum wage. All right, great thing, right? Well, the unintended consequence of that, which is a good consequence, I want to be very clear about this, a good consequence is that people were lifted out of the federal poverty standard. What that does, though, is that causes a reduction in federal aid coming into the state, and it hits schools in Title I. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts is facing a 10% reduction, which will equate to $100,000 or so to the Beverly Public Schools. So these are the increases or decreases, however you want to look at it, in 2 weeks. For now, that ever-moving goalpost of instead of $4.8 million, $5.8 million.
May I pose a question to the back row? Trying to be polite is never out of style. Is that 100,000 on top of the previous 125?
No. So way back, earlier in the budget process, the federal, what are we, we're in federal 26, right? We're in federal 27 right now. That's the federal 27 budget, the one that when we went into a government shutdown, the federal grants had not been appropriated. Our federal grants are forward funded. So this year's federal budget funds our next year title grants. There had been at a point in time some conversation that we might see one of the proposed budgets, and I don't want to misspeak by saying whether it was the House or the Senate that had proposed it, did propose a 25% reduction in Title I. When that budget finally got passed, it got passed level funded at the federal level. And so at the federal level, it was level funded, and so they're not in addition to each other. So the same pool of money at the federal level, when it's split out to the states and then within the state to all the communities, our proportionate share of people at the qualifying threshold at the federal level is reduced by about 10%. And so that $100,000 that we are the current census data forecast is predicting for Beverly, DESI's best estimate is about $100,000 less, which is about 15% of our
FY '26 Title I appropriate entitlement budget, because we had about $650,000. And so they're not in addition to each other.
Right, so that minus 100,000 is for next year.
Correct.
But this year, we lost 125 as well, right?
No.
We didn't end up
We did
losing
not.
that.
Right, and because
Okay,
the money
great.
that would be in the federal budget that is this year funds next year's grants.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
They
thanks.
forward fund the federal grant programs. The primary program that's funded for school districts at the federal level, that's funded in the current year, is the school lunch program.
So I want to address one other thing too that goes beyond this. Just 1 second. And the reason why I'm saying that is this is not a Beverly problem. Okay? This is a comprehensive challenge of funding our schools within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Yesterday, as far as I can tell, and I'm going to share my screen, 2 students from Canton got every single superintendent's email, and I will forward this to everybody on the committee, and basically put out, we, the students of Canton High School, recently we've been hearing more and more in the news about funding problems affecting school districts across Massachusetts. And so they go on, I'm not going to read it to you, but they go on to list the problems. Also coming up in my feed from South Hadley on Instagram were 4 or 5 students who are talking about the things that they are going to face if an override fails. All right? At AP programs, gone. Athletics, gone. The superintendent is in my NISIP program, and she's like, there's nowhere else to, this is not an idle, they're not idle threats. Like, we are coming down in many places of the state of financial crunches and challenges really posing severe limitations to schools. All right? I want to be clear. This is not a Beverly alone problem. This is a challenge that I know the mayor and others are advocating for at the state level. I know people are banging down doors. The North Shore Superintendent's Roundtable had a meeting 2 weeks ago this Friday for legislators where we laid out the complex problems that we are facing. All right? This is not something, and Hannah Bowen hosted, many of you were there, hosted a night where Eric Tracy and I, the superintendent of Hamilton Wenham, spoke, and there was a flyer there. I can also post that in my next memo for the community. This is not a Beverly-specific problem. We're going to have to come up with Beverly-specific solutions, but this is something that needs to be a top priority for our senators and legislators and governor to really address. And I'm not speaking in hyperbole here. I'm speaking in real challenges facing districts like ours.
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
Superintendent Cushing, could you clarify, did Beverly decide to decrease Title I?
No.
Thank you.
All right, I'm looking around the room, hoping to go to agenda item number 8. All right, here we go. School Committee President Report. Oh, that's me. Okay. Whew. We have on our agenda this evening a second reading of our norms and protocols, and that is up for a vote. So, yes, Ms. Ducharme.
I had a thought that I wanted to propose.
You may not until there's a motion on the table.
Sorry.
I'll make that motion.
You're making a motion to vote to accept the norms and protocols as presented to us?
Yes.
Second.
Ms. Frost, was that you? Yeah. Thank you. Yes, Ms. Ducharme, you may go now. Thank you. That's all right. Don't be no sorries.
I thought I turned it on. I turned it off. I had a thought about the note that we all got about use of technology during school committee meetings. And I wondered if, and I know that you wanted a response to that, I wondered if maybe building some language into the norms and protocols would be helpful. And I have some proposed language, because I don't want to just say I think we should do it and not propose some language. So I'd like to propose some. Can I do that? Okay. I think in after the first paragraph, let me find it. Sorry about that. Under the second section of the norms and protocols, I'm looking for it in my packet. Sorry. I'm sure it's here.
How about,
I don't have it.
Ms. Quill, may I ask you?
I'm sorry.
Was that document in this packet or only last month, because it really came to us last month?
Yeah, it's linked in the.
I did. Oh, I'm sorry. I did look at it and I didn't print it, Ms. Quill. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Kim. Oh, do you mind? Thank you. So I was thinking under the section that's titled "Demonstrate Professional and Collegial Relations with one another," I was trying to find where I thought it might be the best place, and since it talks about demonstrate professional. After the first paragraph, I'm proposing that we add a second paragraph that says, and I'm happy to send this language out, remain mindful that use of laptops, tablets, and phones during meetings should be related to school committee business only. Personal communications or unrelated electronic activities should be avoided so members can remain present and engaged in the discussion. Be continuously mindful that communications created during meeting, including school committee adjacent meetings, I'm open to removing that section, may be subject to public records and open meeting laws. If a personal matter requires attention, members should step outside the meeting room and return when able. I'm open to paraphrasing that and making it shorter, but I thought this norms and protocols document might be an appropriate place to put something like that. I'm happy to read it again, and like I said, abbreviate it.
Seems well drafted.
So are you making a motion for an amendment? You're motioning an
I
amendment?
am, please. I'd like to make a motion to amend the norms and protocols after the first paragraph under the section that's titled Demonstrate Professional and Collegial Relationships with one another. I'm proposing that we make the second paragraph the language that I just read.
Second.
Okay. Wait, I have an extra sheet of paper for unintended.
Oh, can I make a suggestion?
Are you going to amend her amendment?
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Well, I'm gonna suggest that maybe she, whatever. Can I?
Just go.
Okay, just go. The adjacent thingy?
Yeah.
What was that wording?
So it says, be continuously mindful that communications created during meeting, including school committee adjacent meetings, and I'll tell you that what I was thinking about in that situation was like the town hall that Hannah hosted or the financial forecast meetings. There are lots of things that as school committee members we do that are sort of what I'll say are school committee related adjacent, but still require us to be professional. And so that's why I thought it was important to include that language in there, but I'm open to removing it.
Yes, Ms. Frost.
I'm excited about this. Is there any way I could read it?
Yeah.
I'd not the
Yeah.
second, but I mean maybe
Yeah.
chew on it, you know what I mean, think
Sure,
about
we
it.
can-
But I mean,
we
or
can,
now I don't care.
You can send that
I'm happy
language
to send it out. Yeah, I'm happy to read it again, but I'm happy to send it out too.
I'm gonna say one more time, I don't believe that we ever found our happy place with the passage. I have scoured my mailbox. I don't know that how you are feeling about the text as it is right now.
I'm trying to do that right now.
Okay,
But-
so here's what I propose. I propose that you send your text out. I need to get through Friday, and then I have a week of spring break where I have piled a million things to do. So there won't be any breaking. But maybe, Miss Quill, you and I could have a date next week where we scour your mailbox, quote unquote, your mailbox for the old text. All right, so for context for everybody else, there was a text written that kind of made a little carve out for the mayor. The mayor, in his role as mayor and sitting on the school committee, he gets a little carve out, right? He does not have to hold himself to the same exact details that are itemized in these norms and protocols, and we worked really hard to do that carve out, and we seem to have somehow lost that carve out in the transition of different bodies and different people's emails. So we can also, if we find our happy place, just put this. I don't want to be too aggressive and say we can get it on next Wednesday's meeting, nor do I want to overpopulate next Wednesday's meeting. We already have a very full agenda for our joint meeting with our city council friends. So, to some extent, what's 2 more weeks? I think that we have been showing each other grace. I appreciate, again, most of you answered my email. I appreciate that. I think we're doing a very good job trying to not get caught in bear traps at this particular meeting, regardless of whose bear trap it is. And so,
It's my own.
3 times what you well, there have been 3 bear traps tonight. All right. So I don't have a problem tabling this for another 2 weeks with that amendment on the table. And you'll send the text around to everybody. I will take the action item. You can keep looking at what's bugging you.
I'm going to check with the retired solicitor.
Oh, please.
I think that
Yeah,
might help us
whoever's
dig it out.
boxing is in.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and do that.
That'll be, all right, so you get an action item. I feel like Oprah here. You get an action item. You get an action item. Lori, you and I get an action item. I'll bring snacks. All right, next item on the agenda, community liaison reports. I'm looking around the table. Mr. Taylor, did you do anything? Have you been to any meetings since Hannah's meeting?
No.
Okay, fantastic. Well, not really fantastic, but we'll just move to that. That means I can move to the next one. Ms. Cahill, have you been to an OSC meeting?
No, later this month.
I'm batting 1,000 here. Ms. Ducharme is going to ruin my batting average. Be healthy, Beverly, please.
No.
Oh, really?
I know. I couldn't make it.
Oh, well, no, that's
know.
kind of okay. All right, so meaning that we can move right along. The next item on my report is the upcoming meeting dates, and I've said several times, we have a joint meeting next week, Wednesday, the 18th. At 6:30. Okay, so I originally asked all y'all to hold like 7 o'clock, I think, and our city council friends asked for it to be at 6:30. Expected to be a very lively, very budget-heavy conversation. As of this moment in time, Ms. Council President Flowers and I are hoping to hold the meeting in the Beverly High Library. So I'm looking over there. You could maybe change your meeting to be in that same location if you guys still wanted to meet for a half an hour. If you were in the same location, you could do it there, and then you'd be there for this.
I will address that with my committee.
Fantastic. Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda.
Madam President, may I?
Yeah, yes, Ms. Ducharme.
I want to just mention that I reached out to the PTOs to gather gather schedules for their remaining meetings. I have some of that information, and I want to know how you think it might be best under the category of upcoming meetings and dates. I think the goal that you wanted was for us to pick and sort of share some of those duties so that we are available to the community through participating in the PTO meetings, but then the idea is bringing that information back to our community. So I've heard back from many of the schools, not all of the schools, and I want to know how you think it might be best to distribute that and then for us to pick from those dates.
I would love for those dates to be on our agendas, every single agenda.
Great.
We can list them, and then I think that we can have more of a conversation kind of as they're on there. For instance, if there's a Centerville one, I happen to know that Mr. Taylor will be there.
Yep.
There's probably a Cove one, I'm pretty sure Mr. Taylor will be there. I could go on. He's very good about going to the PTO meetings, right?
Well, like the high
so we-
school one just happened and nobody was there. I couldn't make it. So like it would be nice if we could
had some
collaborate. So also
coordination.
two people don't need to go to the same meeting, but we don't need to not go.
Right, so maybe we'll turn it into a like doodle poll of some type of somebody who can handle that technology.
It's gonna be June.
Yes, quickly.
That's a really good idea. I like the Google Doc or something like that of a date or something.
Does that mean you're volunteering?
I know. You're right. I remember.
All right, we'll work on that. I'll take that offline. Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities.
The Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities last met on February 25th, 2026. We approved gifts to schools that's coming to the Committee of the Whole. We had a B&G report with an update on winter groundskeeping. We're bringing forward 3 policies for first reading. We talked about updated building rental fees that are coming to the Committee of the Whole. We heard Emma's report on the FY26 year-to-date budget reviews with revenues and expenses. The Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities would like to make a motion to approve the January 2026 gift to schools totaling $1,415, and the budget, it's in your packet. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Cahill.
I was going to say thank you. You say thank you. I'll say thank you too. Do you want me to call the roll?
Sure.
Any questions, comments? All those in favor? With gratitude, 9-0.
Thank you. The Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities would like to make a motion to approve the budget transfer 1201, and it is in your packet. Do I have a second?
Second.
Wait, I missed who did the second. Sorry, I'm trying to keep my minutes. Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions on the budget transfer? All those in favor? It passes 9-0.
The Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities would like to make a motion to approve the new updated building rental fees, and that was also in your packet. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms.
Thank you, Mr.
Robinson?
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Anybody want to step into the bear trap? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Taylor.
You know I have a question. So I just had a question. I know just clarity question. Rental fees are only charged to groups composed primarily of non-Beverly community groups. Is that right?
Yes, so consistent with our policy that is coming forward for first reading tonight, which is our building rental one. That's why they sort of came together. We like things on theme. Yes, we do not charge rental fees for space to non-Beverly groups. When we have to pay additional custodial fees, we do pass those costs through because the district is not going to take on the burden of renting out our spaces. But other than that, yes, if they're primarily made up of Beverly residents, they are not charged a fee.
And may I ask another question?
Yes, you already you just did.
Okay.
Would you like a third? 3 for $1.
3 for $1. Nice. All right. These fees, they have an asterisk next to them. I didn't know if, because there's no asterisk on the bottom, what that meant.
The asterisk refers back to, so we have the policy that school committee gets, and then we have a procedural guide that we share with the renters of our space. And so the policy refers back to these fees and noting them as these are
custodial and wage fees. So these are things not eligible to be waived.
The asterisk is on a really skinny line under CAF workers.
No, I just noticed that. Yeah, I'm catching up with the team.
No problem. Are you all set?
All set.
Any other questions on the motion to accept the basic fee schedule changes? There's a motion on the table. All those in favor? Any opposed? That passes 9-0.
The Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities would like to bring forward 3 policies for a first reading. 2 are just marked for review. 1 has a caregiver change in it. That is policy KHA, and they are in your packet.
All right, so there's nothing to vote, for these 3 policies, there's nothing to vote on. KHA, KF, and JJE are for the first reading. There's nothing to vote on. But please lay your eyes on them. We'll be voting on them on our next meeting. Oh, yes, Mr. Mayor.
I want to ask a quick question about KF. I mean, we talked about this last time, and this is some years ago, but the Beverly-based groups language, I'm just wondering if we might want to tighten that up. The superintendent is authorized but not required to, certainly, so there's that discretion. But as I'm reading it, if some friends and I, maybe even the president, wanted to go to a gym and play pickup basketball, we probably shouldn't get the fee waived. We should probably pay for it. And we may all live in Beverly.
And the group is paying for it. The basketball group is paying right now, and they have.
Oh, I don't
been for a
doubt it,
number
but I'm
of
just
years.
saying the language here suggests that, the spirit of this language is that we don't want to be charging our own, for example, youth sports, right? Beverly Youth this, Beverly Youth that. And they're generally organized as nonprofits. I wonder if there may be some additional language we might want to tighten it up with. I'll give it a look and maybe put pen to paper.
And maybe, yes, and maybe bring an amendment next week. Wouldn't that be lovely? Was your hand up? Well, you're trying to step into that bear trap?
It is definitely a bear trap, but I just want to make sure that youth sports continues to be affordable, and if meaning that we're giving free space, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, no, that's not what he's saying. He's saying there are adult groups that come
Okay.
in, and somewhere in the past, some of those adult groups were allowed to come in for free.
Okay.
And so, for instance, we have a very friendly agreement with the YMCA, and so, or with Beverly Rec. So, for instance, adult rec volleyball plays volleyball in I think the Hannah School is the school with the volleyball stanchions, and we don't charge them. And so, that's a whole nother tier of a thought, right? So you have like ad hoc groups, then you have organized groups of adults, and then there were years in the past where our youth sports had to pay, and so this policy was changed, I don't know, some number of years ago, and so our youth sports do not pay. But I heard the mayor, and he's going to think about some words. Okay, Ms. Coelho, I'm sorry.
No, not a problem. All right, next, the Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities would like to bring forward for a second reading and approval policy KCD, public gifts to school, with no new changes.
All right, so that means we're really just looking to mark it as reviewed. I'm looking for my meeting minutes. Okay. Does anybody want to second Ms. Coelho's motion?
Second.
Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Ducharme. KCD. Okay, I'm looking. Any questions? Sorry, I asked the question and I didn't look. All those in favor? Any opposed? That passes 9-0.
President Viznik, I don't think you recognized me. I had a question on KHA.
How can I not recognize you, honey bunny? All right, KHA on our first reading, yes.
Yes. I just wanted to, this was a big area of discussion in our Finance and Facilities Committee about the BMS Big Bucks calendar, et cetera. That's a big fundraiser for them and kids coming into the school. You could, I'm sorry, Kim, did you want to?
That was actually JJE,
JJE.
not KHA. That was JJE.
Okay, all right, okay. I get my initials. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair Coelho, for correcting me. I was just thinking about this because I just do that. And I was wondering if number 2, no general or class distribution, and I'll let you read that, would be violated if a student distributed a Big Bucks calendar to somebody because somebody's mom Venmo'd somebody at the PTO money. Because it very clearly states that the PTO groups are considered school groups and will be governed by the school committee. So I just leave that as a comment.
So that really is KHA. You're the one you're talking about itemizing. We're really on
Correct.
KHA, public solicitations in the schools. How about, may I get on your dance card to discuss this one, Dr. Cushing?
Happy to.
That means Q squared. Can you just add me on another lovely meeting on the calendar with the big boss? All right. We passed, and when are you next meeting?
FNF will next meet in 2 weeks on March 25th. Oh, sorry, my mic wasn't on. FNF will next meet in 2 weeks on March 25th.
April. No, March? March, oh boy. I'm trying to zoom myself to the end of the semester. I was wishing it would be April 25th. Okay, Standing Committee on Curriculum, Instruction, and Student Life, Ms. Ducharme.
Member Coelho did a really great job, so I'm going to try to piggyback on that and do equally a good job. We met this evening. We reviewed 2 policies for, we asked the committee to consider and do their homework on 2 policies, BPS IHBP, Alternative School Programs, and BPS IHCA, Summer Schools. We'll be considering those at our next meeting for a second review. We heard from our middle school and high school students with their student life updates, some really exciting things happening in sports and strings and athletics and semi-formal and prom, and they just continue to impress me with their updates. And then Miss Erin Brown did a great job giving us a visit with a presentation on multi-tiered systems of support, which was sort of a piggyback to a previous presentation that she did. We agreed to add an item to a future agenda to open up space for any questions that folks might have had subsequent to that they would like addressed maybe at the next meeting because we ran out of time. The Standing Committee on Curriculum Instruction, Student Life would like to bring forward to the committee for a second review policy BPS INJNB, use of technology in instruction.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion. Sorry.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Coelho. Anybody have any questions, comments, amendments? I see none. All those in favor? Any opposed? That passes 8-0.
Madam President, the Standing Committee on Curriculum, Instruction, and Student Life would like to bring forward for a second reading, policy BPS INJND, access to digital resources. I would like to make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Coelho. Any comments, questions, amendments? Yes, Miss Unmute down there, thank you.
I believe you added an extra N to that.
I did? Well, it's probably because I didn't put my reading glasses on my head. May I correct that, please, to BPSIJND, access to digital resources. Having said that a second time, I think you're right. Thank you.
Okay, no, I see no questions, comments, amendments, other than spell it the correct letters. All those in favor? Any opposed? That passes 8-0.
And our next meeting for CISL will be, that's Finance and Facilities, will be April 8th at 5:30. No, excuse me, 6:15.
Daylight savings time. Oh, the old time, it might have been 5:15, I don't know.
Yeah, even with
All
reading
right,
glasses, I can't
next on our little dance card here, Negotiations Subcommittee. Negotiations Subcommittee plans to meet Friday, March 13th. Come on, Friday the 13th, it's got to go well, right? From approximately 4:30, starting 4:30 till 6 p.m. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in our executive session that's upcoming. Policy Review Subcommittee, Ms. Cahill.
Nothing new. I met with the president. We discussed exactly how we wanted to proceed with what we were tasked with doing. At this point in time, we're scheduled for a meeting, but I think we may, in fact, postpone that and just go forward with our meeting that's scheduled on April 15th at 6 o'clock.
Full disclosure, I stole your meeting date. We had a joint meeting. Again, there are 9 of us and there are 9 city councilors, and trying to herd enough of those cats that we had a quorum on both sides. We had to move on more than one occasion the date that we wanted for our joint meeting. And so I apologize, Policy Subcommittee, that the greater good of meeting our city charter requirement to have a joint meeting is overtaking your policy meeting. All right, we are now at the point, communications from school committee members, and Ms. Cahill, I remember from the beginning of the meeting that you wanted to say something.
I did, thank you. I received the email that I believe all of us received from Mr. Willenbrock inquiring about assignment on a committee or whether he was going to be assigned a committee. So he contacted me again and asked me if I could bring that forward to find out sort of what the status
I have
was.
answered him.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, he didn't relay that to me today. Okay, then I guess that question has been answered. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
Well, I did go to PTO meetings, so I want to communicate that to the committee and talk about those. But the first thing I want to do is recognize that on Friday in 1990, 26 years ago, America did pass the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is why we have such big doors and why you can fit wheelchairs through them and why we have curb cuts and everything. And that helps our students to learn. So that's a really big deal. And that's a really big date, and that will happen on Friday. But now back to the PTOs. Hannah is having, they're in the midst of their readathons, a readathon. And I know that 2 of our school committee members have signed up, at least 2 of them, and they are looking for more community readers. So if you're so inclined and would like to do that, please see me or contact me. And I have the sign-up sheet. I know that Dr. Cushing does as well, or the link to sign up. Hannah is also celebrating their school safety officers who allow our children who choose to walk to school or bicycle to school, to celebrate them and thank them for their service. So I wanted to highlight Hannah. I attended Centerville's meeting, and they had a very vigorous and very successful parent-only fundraiser in January at one of our local Beverly businesses. They were so ecstatic about it that they wanted me to talk to our Hannah and our Cove, friends at Cove, and I believe member Lennox will talk about Cove in a moment. So I did. And I think this also illustrates how important our Beverly business community is to the success of our schools. And can't be emphasized enough. And with that, President Visnick, I will step back. I wanted to celebrate these two PTOs who are so instrumental, these parents are, in engaging with our children, our learners, our teachers, and our other folks. So thank you.
Fantastic. I appreciate that. I have a question for you before you totally turn off your mic. What book did you read when you went to do the read along?
That will happen on 3/18. So.
Are you picking your own book? Have you picked it yet?
I have not. I will show up at the Hannah Library, elementary school library. And I will inform the committee at the joint committee. Should you so wish, I will inform the team.
I'm a fan of Where the Wild Things Are, just so you know. All right, I'm looking around the room. Yes, Maddie, Miss Lennox.
Well, John also attended the Cove PTO, as did I, which was a month ago. But so they, back in January, did their candy bingo night, which is always a big hit with the kids. It's not a fundraiser, just a fun night where everyone gets candy, gets sugared up. But on their horizon, they have a silent auction coming up pretty soon. And also their very popular talent show is on March 19th here at the middle, I believe it's at the middle school. They're doing a lot right now at Cove. They launched their Best Buddies program this year. They got a grant for, I think this is for the whole city, but all third graders have access to all historic Beverly sites for free, which is great. They wanted me to spread the word about kindergarten registration. And then they have the Bionic project coming in, which is adaptive soccer, which sounds really, really cool. And I know my 5th grader is jealous she's not there to do that. And I believe that's all, unless John has anything to add to the Cove.
You did a great job, Maddie. Thank you so much. And it was fantastic to be there and hear what everybody is doing at Cove School and the arts and enrichment activities. I can't emphasize for the community enough the things that our PTOs do to enrich the learning experience that our children have, and how our teachers work so hard to kind of fit what the PTO can do into the various boxes. Thank you.
One thing I wanted to add is that the principal, Kate Tomley, she wanted to emphasize with looking for subs. I know that's something that comes up a lot. Sometimes they're just needed for a couple hours and everything's just on an app. So if people have limited times, they can do it. That's really good to know that it's just sometimes just a few hours that they are needed. I also wanted to ask one thing, and I've heard this from a couple people, and I know it's not in Ward 2, but when John was talking about walking to school, something I noticed, and I know it's a big challenge with all the snow, which finally is melting, going up Herrick Street, and I know this, it's very confusing, and I know it may, I don't even know who to ask about this, but all the cars park on the sidewalk. And then with the snow, that to me, and people have commented to me about this, seems extremely dangerous. So I did want to ask about that.
Go right ahead, Mr. Mayor Mike.
Thank
Or you could say it's not on the agenda.
President Visnick.
Go ahead.
Sorry, not on the agenda.
We, I think in general, Dr. Cushing and I have talked about, we have a shared, we share B&G and DPW, Department of Engineering. How about we call it engineering? And so when there's a snowstorm, and we've had a lot this winter, unfortunately, our budget feels that, certainly. There are definitely challenges. And so we'll have to try to work on how do we prioritize or how do we try to work with and within the confines of those shared resources. Ms. Ducharme, did you have your hand up?
All right, I'm fine. I'll say something now.
Okay.
Unfortunately, some years ago, where those cars park, and that's the only off-street parking they can find, it was never a sidewalk, but it was always very muddy and rutted. And so the DPS made, in some ways, a miscalculation in paving their parking area because everybody started thinking it was a sidewalk and it's not. So, but it is, it comes up a lot for that very purpose. So that, as you know, there's a sidewalk the whole length of the other side of the street. And that's also a part of why there's a crosswalk at the bottom. But people do kind of misunderstand when they see a nicely paved stretch. But that was meant so that their parking would work better all in all, particularly in the tough weather.
Thank you. I had no idea. That's really interesting. I will comment that the other side, I don't believe was plowed. I mean, I know people have to shovel out, but that's a main walkway for kids getting to middle school and high school.
Yes, Ms. Cahill?
I've had this discussion several times with the city. Once you put a curbstone up on the side of it, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. It looks like a sidewalk. It has a curbstone. The kids assume it's a sidewalk. I assume it's a sidewalk. Evidently, some of the constituents assume it's a sidewalk. So, if, like, over by the old Briscoe building where they have all that parking there, it was all rutted, it was all dirt. They just put asphalt straight across it. Here, there's definitely a curbstone.
That's a great point. Maybe what we'll do is put some signage up saying parking, not sidewalk, at the bottom and the top. No, honestly, because people do really question it, so, thanks.
All right. Anybody else with communications? All right, I'm going to put in a plug. I hope that you're all watching your emails because hopefully some of you are getting emails from 8th graders who are doing their civics projects. So I've received a number of them, and I have 3 of them that I haven't responded to yet because they all asked me about the same topic. So I'm hoping to just send one email to all 3 of them. I just love that project. Miss Flowers and the mayor's chief of staff and I met with the students, and I know some of you made videos, right? And this is like one of my favorite things that the students do. So if you get one of those, please watch your emails, and if you get one of those, please give it back. Give it some thought, and I actually invited a particular student here to speak at our next meeting. I said, this is a great idea. Come take it to the next level. Maybe your teacher will give you some extra credit. And the last plug that I'll put in, I have a lovely library, and this week I added to it a book called Disagree Better, and somebody earlier today, I think it was you, was talking about being able to agree to disagree, and how do we treat each other. It kind of goes with our norms and protocols, and be able to actually engage in conversations where we don't necessarily agree, and do that even better. All right, so this is the end of our open portion. I am making a motion to meet in executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for the following purposes, 7 and 3. Purpose 7, to review and approve the executive session meeting minutes for the following executive session meetings, December 17th, 2025. And purpose 3, to discuss litigation, Beverly Teachers Association, Beverly School Committee, MUP 25-11273. As an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the school committee, so the chair declares. Purpose 3 is to discuss strategy with respect to and preparation for collective bargaining with the AFSCME units. Again, because of open meeting would be detrimental, and we are not going to return to open session. Okay, there's our important little piece. So we're going to go into executive session, not come out. I made that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, who's fighting over
give it
that?
to her.
Who's in there? Okay. All right. Oh, okay. All right. This requires a roll call vote. Mr. Mayor Mike Cahill.
Yes.
Ms. Cahill. Yes. Ms. Coelho.
Yes.
Ms. Ducharme.
Yes.
Ms. Frost.
Yes.
Ms. Lennox.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Myself, yes. The time is 9:55, and I'll repeat, we're going into executive session for reasons 7 and 3. Reason 7, to review and approve executive session meeting minutes from December 17th, 2025. And then purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to and preparation for collective bargaining with AFSCME units, because an open discussion may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of our committee, and we will not be returning to open session.